1 minute. Good evening. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you to the school board meeting this Tuesday, April the 19th, 2022. The public is encouraged and welcome to address the school board at the hearing of citizens. The board clerk, Kathy Tompkins, collects the cards for our hearing of citizens. As the board meeting has begun, we will accept no more cards. We'll call you forward at the appropriate time. Would you please stand and do the flag salute under the direction of the Northport High School NJROTC under the direction of retired U.S. Navy Lieutenant Commander D. Barnes. Will be led in the pledge by our student representative, Dylan Almeida.
I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
About face, forward, march. About face.
Please be seated. Now we're going to have a live performance featuring the Riverview High School Kilty Band Flute Quartet performing Jour de la Montage by Eugene Boza, Movements 1 and 2. The students are Mariah Emmerich, Molly McWilliams, Lily Steed, and Willa Gutowski. The band director is Tamara Lewis. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. There's nothing like a flute. And you all played that with such intensity and so well together. Thank you. I'm sure you did well at your MPA this year. As I said earlier, our student representative today is Dylan Almeida from Northport High School. He is a senior. Welcome, Dylan. It's so nice for you to join us as the student rep. Could you please tell us a little more about yourself?
Welcome, everyone. Once again, Dylan Almeida. I'm an A student at Northport High School, class of 2022. I'm a dual sport athlete. I play football and basketball at the school, and I intend on attending a prep school in New Hampshire known as Phillips Exeter this upcoming fall.
Please tell us about the Civility Squad character trait for April and how it affects you.
The Civility Squad character trait of April is positivity. The phrase for this month is stay positive, keep your energy upbeat, and it's a surefire way to battle defeat. When I think of this, I think about my season in basketball got cut short, and I still stayed and participated with the team, went to every event, and showed my positivity, and we ended up winning a couple games and leading the younger guys. But beyond sports, I'm also academically inclined, so, that can mean mentoring others and benefiting your peers that are struggling in class. As you know, it's the fourth quarter in school, and a great way to finish off strong is with positivity.
Well, I'd like to thank you for being here with us. Philip Exeter is not too shabby. Fifth year at Philip Exeter can lead to things with the Ivy League, I know, and I really wish you all the very best of luck. I did present you with a certificate of appreciation for today, and we wish you all the very best of luck in the future. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
And now we move on to special presentations, and I see some people in the audience who are ready to go. The first presentation tonight is celebrating 10 years of EdExploreSRQ. Has it been that long? Would Ms. Angela Harvickson and Mr. Brian Hirsch please approach the podium?
Good evening, everyone. We're here tonight to celebrate EdExploreSRQ.com, its past 10 years and its future. EdExploreSRQ is so much more than a website, but a program that exemplifies the community's support of our students' learning and the importance of collaboration around that. EdExplore was created with a spark of inspiration and initial funding from the Patterson Foundation to provide teachers with an easy place and way to learn about and connect to opportunities for field trips, experts' visits to the classroom, performances, etc. With the challenges of the past years, we have also added virtual explorations and expanded the available offerings on all fronts. The story of EdExplore is a journey that has combined the collective school district strengths with the rich abilities and resources of our community to bring learning to life.
Good evening, Brian Hirsch here. EdExplore is indeed guided by our EdExploreSRQ community partnership team. And the partnership includes the Patterson Foundation. It also includes the Community Foundation of Sarasota County with exploration grants every year provided by the Community Foundation of Sarasota County of over $100,000 available to all of our students with an endowment created by the Patterson Foundation that also grows every single year to expand and enhance our explorations over time. So to date, the Community Foundation of Sarasota County has funded $900,000 over the last 10 years to support current explorations. And here tonight, if she would kindly stand, is the VP of Community Impact from the Community Foundation of Sarasota County, Kirsten Russell. Thank you for being here tonight. Among our other partners as well on the partnership is the Education Foundation of Sarasota County, and together we've created many different career explorations, and as we look toward the future, we hope to bring many of those back to EdExploreSRQ. The Education Foundation has also provided many different classroom grants offering explorations and experiential learning as well. So represented here tonight for the Education Foundation of Sarasota County, please welcome the Chief Marketing Officer, that's Tracy Spalsbury. Please stand. The Arts and Culture Alliance of Sarasota County, represented by Executive Director Jim Shirley. Jim, please stand and say hey. Also on the partnership team is the Science and Environmental Council as well. And the Arts and Culture Alliance and the Science and Environmental Council really help us connect to our providers, all the different partners that we have, all the different organizations, and they offer professional learning and connectivity to all of our teachers and students throughout. Also, just to give you a little bit of background, when we launched this 10 years ago, there were only 50 explorations on EdExploreSRQ with about 20 providers. And as we look forward to today, we have over 200 experiential learning opportunities with more than 50 providers, and as Angela referenced, even including our digital explorations, which we know will continue to grow and enhance and reach all the geographic area here that we have in Sarasota County. As we look forward to the years ahead, experiential learning is indeed a priority within our district strategic plan, where our aspiration is to have an exploration for every student every year.
We've recently launched the 4th iteration of our amazing website. You can see a screenshot of it here. Thanks to Artsopolis for collaborating with us to create this brand new, faster website with improved functionalities for teachers and providers alike, new opportunities to gather feedback, and a fresh, new look, along with many other new features.
So neurological studies have shown we learn best by and through experiences. So tonight, we would love to show you a glimpse of EdExplore in action. We'd like to highlight one of our providers, Florida Studio Theater, which was one of our early and enthusiastic providers on EdExplore, and they continue. So please welcome FST with Caroline Saldivar, the Director of Children's Theater, and we have student Lila Freeman from Bayhaven as well.
Thanks, Brian. Well, hello, everyone. As Brian said, my name is Caroline Saldivar. I'm the Director of Children's Theater at FST. And for over 30 years, Florida Studio Theater has partnered with Sarasota County Schools and most recently EdExploreSRQ to bring our Write a Play program to over 1 million students. The Write a Play program is a unique series of 3 explorations throughout the school year. The first exploration begins in the fall when students like Lila come to Florida Studio Theater to see a professional play. Past plays have included Cinderella, Peter Pan, Robin Hood, and the play serves as an example for what a professional production might look like. For schools unable to take that field trip because they're in South County or the cost of busing is too great, we do provide subsidies and we will tour the show to their school. Now, the second part is my favorite, and that's when teaching artists go to the school and perform plays that have won our festival in the past. And then they improvise plays live on stage with students' ideas. Through the show, students learn the ingredients of a play, character, setting, problem, and dialogue, and they get to see their imaginations come to life right in front of their very eyes. Following that performance, they go into the classroom and they work with students like Lila to write plays of their very own. In the spring, the students participate in the third exploration, and that is either a field trip or a performance at their school. This year, we had submissions from over 4,500 young playwrights from around the world, and we selected 11 plays to feature in our anthology performance that this year we're calling The Grandma That Ate Everything and Other Winning Plays. In addition to being performed for thousands of school children, the plays perform for the public on the weekends and will be performed at our annual Young Playwrights Festival. This day, playwrights and their families and their teachers will join us at the theater to see their plays perform, receive medals and certificates of honor for their creativity and bravery. At Florida Studio Theater, we believe that every child has a story to tell, and by encouraging them to write their ideas down in a play and performing these plays, we celebrate their creativity, honesty, and endless imagination. Now, this year, plays include stories and lessons that are really vast and wide, from The Last Acorn, which is a story of a small acorn afraid to leave the tree, to All Signs Point to Friendship, the story of a girl who is deaf and teaches her classmate to sign and builds an important friendship. Now, we're lucky enough to have a video of that play and the playwright, Lila, here with us today. We'd like to show you some of her play first, and then I'd like to interview her just to learn a little bit more about her process and what inspired her play. Let's take a look at it. This is the first time you're seeing it, right? Okay.
So, do you like school?
It is okay. I just started here, so I don't know many people yet. I just moved here from California.
Could you say all that again, but look directly at me? I read lips, but I can't tell what you're saying unless you're looking at me.
Oh, okay. Do you also sign?
Yes, but not many kids at school know how.
Yeah, I don't know how. But I would love to learn.
You would? I can teach you.
When?
Now! Backpack.
Backpack.
Backpack. 2 months later, we are dressed for winter and walking to school.
Thank you for teaching me to sign.
Thank you for teaching me what it's like to have a friend in this school.
Wrong. Thank you for teaching me what it's like to have a best friend in this school. The end.
Now, Lila, can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to write your play?
I saw people that were different, and I wanted them to know that it's okay to be different and it's good to be different.
Awesome. Is there a lesson or something you hope that children or grown-ups take away from seeing your play?
It's good to be different, and in fact, it's like amazing and awesome.
Now, I happen to know that Lila and her teacher and classmates are coming on a field trip tomorrow to Florida Studio Theater to see her plays and all of the plays in the Grandma That Eats Everything and other winning plays. How are you feeling about that?
Amazing in every single way.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Lila, for joining us, and thank you for allowing us to perform your play. We're so honored to perform and inspire and celebrate creativity in the children in our community through the Write a Play program, and we invite you all to come join us at FST to see the plays and join in our celebration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of you for prioritizing and supporting experiential learning in Sarasota County Schools. We're excited as we look forward to the future of powerful engagement for all our students in our school district through EdExploreSRQ. This concludes our special presentation. Thanks.
Well, I would like to thank Lila, and I would like to thank all of our partners in the audience, because we couldn't do this without you. The arts are so important, and Jim Shirley has done a great number of wonderful things for our school district. Most recently, worked very hard on the referendum, and we thank you for that, Jim. We thank the Education Foundation, and we love and thank the Community Foundation. So bravo to all of you. The next presentation highlights Booker High School girls basketball team. Yoo-hoo! Would Mr. James Slayton, Athletic Director, please approach the podium for a presentation?
We've come together to recognize the amazing, not only athletic, but academic achievements of these great young ladies for Booker High School girls basketball team. I'd like to thank Superintendent Asplin, our school board, for realizing the importance of athletics. We like to say athletics aren't life, but they're the tools we use to teach life principles, and these women epitomize that. These fine Booker athletes exhibit the very characteristics that our district desires from all of our student athletes, and that is to be the best citizens, students, and athletes they can possibly be. Not only were they great on the court, which is in the state of Florida for girls basketball, some of the best in America. They were in the Final Four. They were the last public school standing in the Final Four. They lost to, excellent. So we were the public school state champions. They lost to Lake Highland Prep, was a top team in America. in a great game. But not only were they excellent on the court, they were also an academic state championship qualifier off the court, which is awesome. It is extremely rare to play at that high of a level on the court, but then also in the classroom. So that is something to be proud of. I want to thank Booker High School Principal Dr. Rachel Shelley, new Athletic Director Scotty Littles, and Assistant Principal Stacy Tinkus for all their support and efforts to make Booker High athletics great. At this time, we will welcome the Booker High School head coach, Ty Bryant.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here. What a great year for these student athletes, winning district and regional championships, and of course being recognized as academic champions. These girls are achieving both on and off the court. They are the Booker promise, being college and career ready. Our coaching staff vision when we hired was to not only produce a winning basketball team, but to produce awesome students and to follow the lead of our awesome principal, Dr. Shelley. My 4 seniors have all been accepted into college through their academic achievements, not their athleticism. I would call that success. I have challenged these girls to create a legacy that little girls can be proud of and strive to be. It's not about dribbling a basketball, it's character, respect for your community, and most of all, of yourself. I would like to thank our administration, the teachers at Booker High that have shown the support and the patience to make our students, athletes, some of the best in the state of Florida. We will continue to work and try to achieve being the best that we can be, and that's by being college and career ready. At this time, I'd like to introduce some of these outstanding students. First of all, Jakai Peterson. Next, Jaslyn Williams. Chariot Johnson. Jada Cunningham. Soraya Bradley. Devin Johnson. Jaden Lattimore. Shalise Sumter. Our captain, Tiana Ash. Kamani Freeman. And let me introduce our speaker now. First of all, before I introduce our last one, our speaker, I'd like to give it up for my coach, Coach Lisa, assistant coach, Coach Lisa, and Coach Paul McLeod standing in the back also. And the last one here, who will also be our speaker, who's also won numerous awards already for her speaking ability. So you're blessed tonight, Leah DeBose. Go ahead.
Season 2, Episode 29, the grand finale. Good evening, everyone. I am Leah DeBose, a junior student athlete on this team. I am a part of the school's CFES program, National Honor Society, ACE program, and peer mentoring program. Though I could go on and on about myself, I am here before you today to talk about these lovely ladies I ever so proudly call my teammates. I've been playing basketball at Booker since my freshman year. I've been playing alongside most of these girls since 5th grade when we were playing Suncoast basketball, then AAU basketball. But there's something about this team that stands out, and let me tell you, I am playing with some of the brightest, most talented, and dedicated individuals on and off the court. From attending study hall together to catching our coaches' heat together, I am proud to call these girls my family. Our transition from last year to this year was one that you just had to see. You really had to see it for yourself. Our coaches and the ladies are proud of it. We have matured as young ladies and developed as players. From the times where we couldn't run the 3-man weave properly to running our half-court sets flawlessly. Well, flawless in my opinion. From sharing laughs and tears. From singing our hearts out at practice to screaming at the top of our lungs, cheering our teammates on the bench. From picking each other up when one is down to celebrating all the accomplishments of our teammates. No matter how small everyone else may think they are, they're a big deal to the Lady Tornadoes. So now, I am cherishing these memories we have shared, hoping to make more along the way. This year we made it to the Final Four, and it didn't come easy. We beat the odds that many thought were unbeatable. We shocked the world. All of our trials aren't for public knowledge, but it does make our story even better. The stage in Lakeland is bound to give you butterflies in your stomach, but it is a feeling you will never forget. Our goal is to pick up where we left off and finish the mission next year. I am sad to see our seniors go, my big sisters. Devin's contagious smile and her lockdown defense, Shalice's goofy personality and thunderous court presence, Jaden's groovy dance moves and one-of-a-kind boxing out, Tiana's spark of dynamite and continuous leadership. This won't be the last time you hear about them or see them. You will see pieces of them in all of us as we make our way into next season. You may have most recently heard about our academic accomplishments in being the 2021-2022 FHSAA academic champions, holding an unweighted team GPA of 3.2 and a weighted team GPA of 3.86. Yes, that deserves a big round of applause. We take pride in our work and getting it done to the best of our abilities. Needless to say, it has paid off. We wouldn't have been able to achieve this without the encouragement of each other, our parents, our administrators, and our coaches. Right now, we're developing our dash. What is our dash, you might ask? It is the legacy that we are going to leave behind and how we want the world to remember us. As I wrap up here today, I hope I have made a lasting impression on you, and you remember that this group of young ladies is going to impact not only the community, but the world as well. So remember our names and faces. You will see us being the next doctors, engineers, entrepreneurs, basketball stars, and so much more. Our future is bright. We are paving the way for the younger girls behind us who are eager to follow in our footsteps. Reiterating what our coaches tell us all the time, little eyes are upon us. However, it's not just little eyes that are upon us now. All eyes are upon us. That's a good thing, though. That makes us want to work even harder. Now you'll be tuned in to the next season of the Lady Tornado series. Season 3, Episode 1, coming to a court near you. Thank you.
Board members, you can't see me, I can't see you, and basically from here on, I can't see anybody, and James and Dr. Shelley are out, so I need everybody to turn aside here.
Come on now. Come on, Karen, we want to get you in there.
Okay, let's hear about that tornado. Smile. What was the score?
Winning. Congratulations, ladies.
Well, how eloquent you were, Ms. DeBose. I think I may know your dad. Eloquent. And you know, You're right. Next year will be another year to build on. Dr. Shelley, you just keep doing the great things you're doing. Booker is such a great school. Thank you. The final presentation tonight is introducing the National Merit Finalist. Last but not least, would Mr. Steve Canties, Executive Director of Secondary Schools, please approach the podium? And there he is.
Yep, it's just like magic. So, good evening. I want to say to the girls at Booker High School, I did attend the state championship basketball games, and what a great game. Sat with Dr. Shelley and Jim, and we cheered to the best of our ability. You guys were amazing, and what a great team. Coach, amazing job. Good job. Good job. So, congratulations, girls. That's a great game. So, good evening. Tonight is a night of celebration and recognition, and we're going to continue that. We're at that time of the year when we recognize our National Merit Scholar finalists. They're representing the Sarasota County High Schools. But before we do that, I'm going to ask you all to take a little quiz with me. So, what do the following persons have in common? Mae Jennison, engineer, physician, first black woman in space. Stephen Ballmer, former CEO of Microsoft. Bill Gates, co-founder of Microsoft. Jim Cramer, host of Mad Money. Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon, and he gets a portion of my paycheck every month too. Peter Thiel, he's the PayPal co-founder and billionaire. And Stephen Meyer, he's an American, Stephanie Meyer, she's an American novelist, film producer of Twilight. So, as you probably guessed, all of these are National Merit Scholars. So, this recognition is very prestigious, as you can tell. Of the initial estimated 1.5 million students who are screened across the United States, approximately 3% qualify for program recognition. Of the 3% who are qualified, 2% will receive letters of commendation for their academic promise, and 1% will be recognized as semifinalists. So we're not to this group of students yet. So do you realize what that means? Less than 1% of these scholars are recognized as finalists across the United States. So I have the distinct privilege tonight, and you all have the distinct privilege tonight, of recognizing these top-performing academic students in Sarasota County. Each one of these students will be joining the ranks of high-achieving students that have been recognized since 1955. So I would like for you to keep in mind that we did recognize 2 students previously at the Venice, when we met in Venice at Venice City Hall there. Haley Sprague and Alexia King were recognized as National Merit finalists, so they won't be with us tonight. Some of these students, as you can imagine, are very busy. They're doing things all across our community, great things across our community, so most of them were able to make it tonight. But I'm excited to introduce, first of all, Miss Shannon Fusco. She's the principal at Northport High School. If she'd come up, and she's going to recognize the National Merit finalists for Northport High School.
Thank you for giving us these moments to recognize these students tonight. Joey French, whom you might have met at the last board meeting where he was recognized, is our National Merit finalist. Joey is the dual county ACES champion. He has a perfect score on the ACT. He has the top attainable chemistry score for Cambridge ACE in the nation, and he is our National Merit finalist and a thoroughly wonderful young man. So we're very proud he is not able to be here with us tonight. Thank you.
Okay, now from Pineview School, Miss Assistant Principal Lana Marquette. Dr. Stephen Covert is at an event at Pineview tonight, so he couldn't be here. So Miss Marquette, who is the high school AP at Pineview, will do the introductions.
Thank you, Mr. Canties. Good evening, Superintendent Asplin and distinguished school board members. Thank you for hosting us here to recognize the tremendous accomplishment of the National Merit Finalist Scholars who sit before you today. Scholars, I hope you will join me in recognizing your families for their unwavering support and partnership in your education. Additionally, I know how important it is to each of you to recognize the pivotal role of teachers and staff who have supported your journey across your educational career. It truly does take a village, and I know this community could not be more proud to acknowledge the hard work and dedication of the following students: Matthew Couvert, Nelson Creed, Cole Furley, Laura Gare, Connor LaFoe, Jimmy Liu, Layla McKenzie, Ricardo Prado Cunha, Sanika Prakash, Edward Shen, and for those unable to join us this evening, Summer Bossman, Sarah Catalano, Abraham Daoud, Andrew Goodson, Elizabeth McBride, Dimitri Pappas, Siddhartha Reddy, Jack Riez, Lucas Rudloff, and Richard Sawicki. Thank you.
Okay, so the last group that we'll be recognizing tonight, we have Principal Arundel Castillo from Riverview High School. She'll be recognizing our National Merit finalists from Riverview.
Thank you, Mr. Cantis. Good evening. The Riverview High School community is so proud of our National Merit Scholar finalists for the class of 2022. And as Mr. Cantis said, over 1.5 million enter into this contest and only 15,000 end up as finalists. To say they are one in a million is a little bit of an understatement. So I want to say tonight I am thrilled to present the Riverview High School National Merit Scholar finalists to the following seniors: Molly Abel, Grant Collins, and Alexa Ziff.
So in total, Sarasota County had 26 National Merit finalists this year. That's an extraordinary number, and we're very proud of each and every one of you. Parents that are here tonight, congratulations. What an accomplishment. Ms. Fusco, if you'll come up and we'll get a picture.
Congratulations, guys.
Congratulations. Thank you all. Before you leave, could the parents stand up, please? Parents? Thank you so much. Congratulations. We'll give everybody a chance to leave that would like to. I think we have some people who need seats, so.
Yes.
The whole room moves out.
I'm going to correct.
Go right ahead. Okay. I think we can continue now. Dr. Asplin, Superintendent's report.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate that. Before I get started, I just want to once again congratulate all of our students, those who are here tonight, receiving those awards and the magnificent activities that they've been involved with, including the Booker High School girls basketball team, not only through athletics, but also academics. Congratulations to them. And also our National Merit finalists. It's such a huge deal to to represent the entire nation as a National Merit finalist. And I know our students spend a lot of time, as I said before, on their homework, being at school, their social life, chores, work, all those things. And they spend quite a bit of time on their studies, and they do such a fantastic job. And I just want to, again, congratulate them and let them know how proud of them we all are. So thank you to those students and the parents. All right, a few items I have here. First of all, Amy Archer, as you know, is our Principal of the Year. And she is at Garden Elementary. Well, she was selected as the 2022 Florida Principal of the Year finalist for the whole state of Florida. Yep. Amy obviously does a fantastic job, and the overall winner of the Principal Achievement Award for Outstanding Leadership will be revealed this summer at the Florida Department of Education's celebration for school leaders. So we wish her the best there, and she is one of 3 finalists for the entire state. ABC 7 Chalkboard Champion honors goes to Rebecca Pequay from Sarasota High School, one of our teachers there. As you know, ABC 7 Chalkboard Champion, they honor a teacher every month in Manatee and one from Sarasota County. And so we are so very proud of Rebecca. Also, Take Stock in Children of Sarasota, they awarded $648,000 in college scholarships the other day to Sarasota County Schools. Yes. So there were 45 graduating seniors who will be going to college, obviously, and using these scholarships. They are awarded to these deserving students who have participated in the Powerful Improving College Readiness and Mentor program of Take Stock. And we're so happy to be affiliated with them as well. So congratulations to those students. Also, registration is now open for the 22-23 school year. So we want to encourage all parents and guardians to begin registering first-time students as well as re-registering their existing students for the upcoming school year. And then the Sarasota County Schools annual Parent Guardian Survey is now available on the district website, and that'll be available through May 2nd. So we encourage you to please take that survey, as we do need your feedback. We want your feedback, and we're looking forward to that. So please take that survey again. It is open through May 2nd, and it is on the webpage. And at this time, I'm going to yield the rest of my time to our attorney, Dan DeLeo, who will come forward and discuss some of the financial pieces of the contract with Shoemaker.
Thank you, Dr. Asplin. I appreciate you ceding me some of your time in order to do this. I know that we were anxious to create some time to get me in front of you to address this fairly narrow issue. I have a PowerPoint, so if you go ahead and take a look at your monitors, I'll go through this brief PowerPoint, but if at any time during this brief presentation you have a question, please stop me and I'll go ahead and answer it. Now, what this is intended to do is provide you folks information related to what we call the cap, or the not to exceed provision, and its exception in the contract with your counsel, with Shoemaker. This is an agreement that was signed in February of 21 when we began to provide legal services. Okay, I'll use that. Section 3, entitled Compensation, has a provision in it that is the topic of discussion, and I'm calling it out. It's highlighted here. It says, in no event shall total fees payable to firm for legal work for the 2021-22 fiscal year, and our fiscal year, of course, is July 1st, 2021 through June 30, 2022, exceed $819,718.62, absent extraordinary circumstances, including but not limited to extraordinary unforeseen litigation. So the idea here is that that's a cap on the fees for that fiscal year. So we began to serve the district in February of 21, and the first sort of 5 or 6 months didn't apply to this calculation. But then work performed after July 1st, 2021 began to accrue toward this cap. So I monitored the cap number of fees. Then in February, early February, I contacted Mitzi to find out what her number was. And then I began to calculate the amount. There we are. The fees paid to date during the relevant period to Shoemaker are $701,844.26. Those are the fees. The costs are about $46,000. So the not to exceed threshold has not been met. We also still have March, April, May, and June that have not yet been paid. And so because it's possible that that amount is exceeded, I wanted to provide you information related to the exception so you can make an evaluation related to that issue. The exception is for extraordinary circumstances. And you'll recall that over the summer, for example, over the summer of 21, we found out that there were certain pronouncements from the governor that related to masks, and masks were taken away as a mitigation tool, and that resulted ultimately in an emergency motion being filed and some monitoring of some litigation statewide and some other issues. So the issues that were related to those issues with the governor and the masks, I calculated the amount of those fees. And what I want to show you are some graphs and some numbers to allow you to evaluate whether or not you believe that those represent extraordinary circumstances such that if the cap actually gets exceeded, and we don't know whether that will happen, there is an exception that's valid. So the fees, and I gave you a memo yesterday, the fees in Exhibits A or B are all specifically listed out. They total approximately $137,000 in fees. I would submit to you that as of the time we signed the agreement in February of 21, that there was no contemplation of that kind of an issue, and that clearly is the kind of extraordinary circumstance for which that provision would apply. So if you take a look at this first graph, it shows payments for invoices from June, July, August, and September. The invoice would be for work that was done the previous month. As you can see in September, that is for work in August, the amount of work more than doubled. And that is specifically because of this issue. You'll recall that it came to a head in August of 21. And you can see an approximately 3, almost 4-month period where amounts were beyond the norm and mean. The next slide shows you a bit of a broader view, but it isolates specifically that type of expense or bill related specifically to the giving of legal advice. And I think it shows much more clearly the increase resulting from these unforeseen circumstances. You have an average of somewhere around $30,000 a month, and then suddenly you can see in August, it more than triples that amount. And you can see very clearly from this slide the increased costs that result from that extraordinary unforeseen event. Here, the blue are the unrelated expenses, and the red are those expenses attributable to this particular issue. So, in summary, what I submit to you is that we are significantly under the cap by about $118,000, but it's a situation where we may very well exceed the cap, and if we do, that exception should apply. And so, in addition to going over these materials and providing you those materials in the memo, I went and did a sort of survey statewide of rates, both in comparably sized districts and differently sized districts around the state, in determining rates, and evaluated my own rates here at Shoemaker. And we unilaterally, as of April 1st, lowered our general counsel advice rate from $275 to $260, and our paralegal rates from $140 to $125. So as of April 1st, going forward, those rates will be lower. And we did that largely because when we looked at our rates, some of the rates, specifically general counsel and paralegal rates, were not out of bounds, but they were, we don't want to be at the top of the market. We want to be competitive, and we felt that we could lower those based upon some of the things that we had done to lower internal costs. So in summary, this exception doesn't yet apply, doesn't yet matter, may in the future. If it does, I think that the extraordinary circumstances like the one I described and quantified for you should apply and vitiate the cap. Any questions?
Mrs. Brown, when you say that we broke it out for the COVID or the mask, you said, does that also include all the discussions that were held back and forth with Mr. Dumas and Ms. Foster, and I think even the union was involved on whether or not we test the employees, whether or not we can vaccinate, and whether or not we get paid if they were vaccinated or not vaccinated. There was a lot of those kinds of discussions. Yes. Those are included.
What you described is included. I tried to draw a sort of common sense bubble around it. Not everything related to COVID certainly is included, but the kinds of things you described I felt should be included within that, and yes, they were.
And the discussions about how the meetings had gotten unruly and how we had to change the procedures at our board meeting. Were those discussions included too?
Some of that was, and some of that was not. If it didn't specifically relate to COVID or have a particular connection to those issues, I didn't include them.
All right, so like because we also had Black Lives Matter at the beginning of the year, and I think now we've had a lot of CRT discussions and emails, and and then I guess there's people threatening to sue us over this or that. Those haven't been included. Those extraordinary ones that I think that we weren't expecting.
That's correct. There are a series of extraordinary circumstances surrounding us, unfortunately, now in this school board and others across the state and across the country. We live in extraordinary times, unexpected certainly, but no, the only one I quantified for you by way of example, which I believe will be sufficient if you choose to use that, but I didn't want to limit it. I just wanted to provide you the information that I thought you needed to make a business decision.
Well, I want to thank you for the service you have provided us and for, lowering your fees. I know that you are invested in our schools and you've got children in our schools and that you want to see our schools succeed too. And I really appreciate making these adjustments for us, but I also appreciate the quality of service you've given us. Thank you.
I appreciate that. We are very proud at Shoemaker to serve this body. The law, people forget, is a service industry. We are here to serve you folks, and we're very proud of that. And we take the job very seriously, and we always strive to improve our processes and the product that we give to you on a regular basis?
I think, when you look at what we have had in the last few years for legal fees, they escalated in 1920. That was before you were here. We had some litigation issues there. But normally with a corporation of our size being close to $1 billion, you would normally think in the private sector that an individual corporation would have legal fees close to $1 million. That's just what I've been told as the norm. And what I have found or had been concerned about over the past 5 years is that we don't seem to have a good control over all of the legal issues in this organization, and we do need oversight. Everything from workman's comp, which is, I understand, $11 million in the last 10 years, to what we're spending and who calls whom for help. And Dr. Asplin and I have had a conversation just this week about that. But this is an awfully important piece of what we do. We, as school board members, do 4 things. We set policy, we have an audit performed, we hire an attorney, and we hire a superintendent. And we don't get involved in running the day-to-day operations of the school district, but there are an awful lot of things that we need to be involved with that have to do with legal issues. And I think that we are, hopefully with some new processes in place, I think that we're going to be in a good position to handle and maintain and monitor this and do a really good job, because I'm not at all sure with some of the litigation that was stretched out since 2014 and so forth that we have brought all that into the future, and it's a really important part of our business. It's going to become an even more important part of our business going forward, and we hope that there won't be frivolous suits. But, let's face it, through the pandemic, there weren't many slip and falls. And so we go forward. So I am I'm very, very happy with the support and the services that you have given us, along with my friend, Mr. McKinley, sitting to my left, and Patrick Dugan. I think that we have, and we have a need. We have a need for help with the school board. We have a need for help with the superintendent and administration. We have a need for contracts. There are a number of needs that require specialty, and I think your firm is set to do that, so I really appreciate it. Mrs. Ziegler.
Thank you. Well, a couple of things. I appreciate this, Mr. DeLeo. I know I have spoken with you. I know I've spoken with the superintendent a number of times, and even at the last meeting. And the reason is I understand when you take on a new client, you don't, as I would say, don't know what's under the hood. So when we were under the RFI and evaluating 3 or 5 firms, I believe it was, that Shoemaker had put forward the not to exceed of 800, and I had it right here, 819,718.62 outside of the extenuating circumstances. In October of 21, I know I had asked to get an update on legal fees, just aggregate fees, and we were approaching about $400,000. And so in my mind, it was, if we were annualizing that, we would clearly puncture the 819,000 at like roughly 1.6 million. And so what I think is important is to have this was to have had this conversation earlier, and I respect that we're having it now. But there are two aspects that I look at this. We are constitutionally required to hold general counsel as a school board, so there is no option to not have a general counsel. We have a fiduciary responsibility to understand that we stay within the confines of the budget, and understanding when you take on a new business relationship, very similar to what I do in the private sector, as we've spoken about, that there are nuances that you may not have been the firm may not have been privy to, and then we have to accordingly adjust the scope of services. And I have heard a couple comments that were made in this just previously by fellow board members, and so I think there's a lot of nuances that we need to address. But my biggest concern is, I appreciate the adjustment of fees, but when we look at the numbers, and this is important, the memo that we got yesterday indicated that it says that Let's see here. As of today's date, the district has paid Shoemaker $838,140.50 in fees. It has also paid $46,262.15 in costs. Now, those are different than the numbers you just put forward, and I did speak with our CFO and superintendent, and do understand that billed is $748,788.91. Minus $682.50 for real estate, which wouldn't go to your firm. So my concern is, as close as we are, I want to make sure the numbers that we're evaluating are accurate. And then to understand what the remaining balance would be for the rest of the year. So as to date, we have been billed up to February and paid, or, and this may be our superintendent, this may be a question for our CFO, just to make sure, because I think for the board especially, as my concern has been, is that as we approach the cap, I would like to have had this a little bit more leeway so that we can adjust accordingly, whether this mean that we change the scope of services midterm and then evaluate at the end of the 1 year. But before we even have that conversation, I just want to make sure each board member has the accurate financial impact where we're at as to date.
Yeah, right. And so I consulted with Mitzi with respect to the numbers to double check the numbers, as I had been doing since back in February. And so the numbers that I provided you here tonight are numbers that come from Mitzi and we agree on. Okay, so that's your number. $701,844.26. That's her number minus the fees. Okay?
May I?
Pardon me, minus the costs.
May I ask the chief
Mitzi,
financial officer?
can you please come up?
So yes, we did have a conversation earlier, and I have not verified the actual costs. I know that Mr. DeLeo has gone through the bills to determine that. But yeah, general counsel fees that have been paid to date are $748,106.41, and that is billings through February 28th. And there was an additional $682.50 paid to Shoemaker Loop for legal services regarding the 17th Street land swap. So that was a capital item. So the next step for us will be to go back, look through all of the bills, determine the costs that we have, compare them with what Mr. DeLeo has to make sure we're at the correct nexus between the cap and where we've paid to date.
Madam Chair, may I follow up?
So this number is frankly a number that the district should keep track of, not us, right? I mean, imagine for a moment. I'm happy to do whatever this board tells me to do, right? I take direction very, very well. But the idea is you want to prevent from overpaying us, right? So the question is, there's the cap number, but the cap number relates to fees, not costs. So all you have to do really is take out the cost number. I'm happy to coordinate with our department, our billing department, and Mitzi, or Mitzi takes care of it. It doesn't matter as long as we have one set of numbers.
Thank you so much. Madam Chair, may I follow up?
Yes.
And again, I know I've had this conversation with the superintendent, but just for clarifying and making sure the board's all on the same page as well as the viewing public, can we clarify the differential between costs and fees just so that we're all, again, all on the same page?
The definition?
Yes, from a billing standpoint.
So costs are something like a filing fee or the fee for an expert. The law differentiates between costs and fees. A fee would be what you pay your lawyer, whether it's flat or hourly, for that amount of work. A cost would be something like a filing fee, the cost of an expert, the cost for a deposition to be made into a transcript.
Okay, thank you. And I honestly, when we look at the cost, at least what was presented, I don't think that that's the substantial amount, but it's still not chump change because it's still all taxpayer dollars. And then just one more clarifying question. There was the $682 for the real estate. Why would that be separated as a comparable? Was that not done under Shoemaker, or was that done by a different?
No, it was done by Shoemaker. It's just that it's charged to the actual capital project rather than to our general operating account for legal expenses.
So I guess my general, forgive me if I sound foolish, but why would that not associate to the overall capped fee related?
No, I'm not saying it doesn't. It does. I'm just saying that it was paid for from a different funding source.
But when you think about a contract, and we're talking about invoiced, there's an invoiced vendor, whomever it may be, and you have a not to exceed, it really doesn't matter necessarily what fund it comes out of. Am I correct?
Correct, and that's why the total I told you earlier was the 748, 788, 91, or
Okay,
whatever the
thank you
number
so
is.
much for that clarifying. So where I find ourselves now is if we're at the end of February, so we have March, April, May, June, 4 months less or more to be billed, even with the adjusted rate, we are well above the likelihood to puncture that $819,000 and such contractual aspect. And in my opinion, it comes down to reevaluating the scope of services. There may be a number of things that your firm has highlighted as opportunities to maybe a cost benefit to invest on the front end, but that I believe would need to be presented to the board in order to see the financial benefit to continue that. When you look at the historical aspects, absent the anomaly years where we had high litigation, and again, I think there's a lot of moving parts in which we're trying, and we've done a good job of trying to mitigate against that. But again, it comes down to we have to be responsible about what we're doing and what we're asking. And I believe your firm has incredible expertise and knowledge. Don't get me wrong in any way, shape, or form. The aspect is we, as a fiduciary of the taxpayer dollars, need to control those costs and evaluate what we are budgeted and able to do and what we want that scope of services to be versus seeing later on it puncture through that. And I think this is something a board we need to do before expanding an additional whatever the cost may be, because I think it's an unknown. The final part I'll say is that when I look at the historical aspect, I've been on this board for quite some time, and there are always, nothing quite like COVID, honestly. But we have had a numerous amount of, when I think of 2015-16, there were a lot of elements when we were talking about what was branded the transgender bathroom back then. I know our attorney did a lot of litigation and evaluation of that. We've had a number of other areas where we've evaluated that. And I would tell you that school districts across the country, and not just the state, had to deal with mask mandates and all the various COVID aspects. And unfortunately, because I got this data last night, I was unable to evaluate other districts to see what their legal fees and have they had an exorbitant amount in addition as a result of the COVID impact, and specifically with the mask mandate or what have you. And so that makes it hard to do an evaluation of what that impact is and whether that they have incurred extenuating circumstances. And so I'm not sure what the next step is. I appreciate this being brought forward, although I would be remiss to say I wish it was a couple months prior to give us more leeway. But at the end of the day, I certainly do not want to feel as though we are backed into a corner for the sake of our taxpayers. And so I believe that as we now have kind of a sense of where we're at, this would require the board to reassess and look at the scope of services and then determine where we go from there.
I was the individual who was responsible for bringing this issue up in the first instance on February 3rd. I brought it up with Mitzi and the district. That initiated a conversation among board members and the superintendent. We are $118,000 under the cap now. There isn't a fire. I will take direction, obviously. I do that very well.
Well, I would just say one thing and add to this. I like the idea of we had to stay under the cap, but we may not be able to stay under the cap. There may be something that happens litigation-wise. There could be all kinds of things that happen. That $1.5 million that we spent in 2019 and 2020, I didn't think we should have spent that money either, but we did. It's like saying, well, I'm not going to have an emergency and I'm not going to go to the hospital if I do get sick or am unwell. You don't know. This is a time that we really don't know what is going to happen. I know that we have a lot of need for some new procedures. Who calls Dan DeLeo? Or who calls Mike McKinley from the school district? We have talked about that. Is it just open? Yeah, pretty much assistant principal picks up the phone and calls. Someone else picks up the phone and calls. Does that impact what we're doing? Yes, it does. So we have to look at some of those processes as well, because we're never going to control this unless we have some of those processes in place. But the unknown or the lawsuit or the issue with something that might happen at the district level, we don't know. We don't have a magic ball. So there is an amount of uncertainty that we're dealing with in this, and those extraordinary circumstances come and go. So I'm saying, aside from extraordinary circumstances, what policies or procedures do we need to do that make us more efficient in our dealing with our attorney? Because I know right now we're not. We're just doing, as we've done in the past. So.
On that point, I feel compelled to tell you as your counsel, as I have told all of you at one point or another, there are some significant legal issues that we need to address and take care of. It's not as if it's going to be a great expense, but there are things that we need to do as an organization, right? We are that billion-dollar company, public entity that essentially had a one-person general counsel for 25 years, and we have some processes as we grew that didn't catch up. There are things that need to be addressed, and I would urge you to address them.
And I think workman's comp is one of those things. I mean, I think it's sitting over here and it's being handled. We've got 80 cases now. I've never ever seen a list of cases even in the workman's comp arena. So I think, are we managing that? Are we doing that as well as we could? I can't say we are, but that is an issue, and that is a lot of money to go through in 10 years, $11 million. So I think we do need processes in place, and I think we do need procedures, but I think we can get there. I hope that, we can stay within that amount. I think it certainly is an important thing, but we cannot, cut our nose off to spite our face, so to speak. So I look forward to having some discussions of those, and maybe we should discuss that at the next workshop. Shirley Brown.
Sorry. I know that sometimes, some districts have one legal representative for the board and another one for the district. We're having both of them under the same, and I'm not saying we ought to change, but we also had a new superintendent that had a lot of questions this year, and rightfully so. I mean, there were a lot of things that were out there. I see the numbers like we were 90,000 or so in August, and close to 70,000 in September, and now we're down to 25,000. So I see those numbers coming down, but I'm also concerned, and I'm hoping that you'll keep track of, if we start getting these lawsuits that may come from the legislation that was passed. And how do we handle that? Because that's something that might be out there, maybe not. But I think in the beginning, it's territory we haven't been in, and we don't know how the courts are going to handle it.
We are in new territory. I have my finger, believe me, on the pulse of what's going on in school law around the state of Florida and around the country. And I can tell you that we are in a different environment. And in this environment, the amount of litigation that we're going to face and the amount of complex issues we're going to face is going to increase. I guarantee you.
Yeah, it is. Plus, like I said, this year there was a learning curve. There was a learning curve for your firm. There was a learning curve for our superintendent. There was a learning curve for new board members. So we had all of those things together. But we have more information from you than I've ever had about what open cases are. And in some ways, I was glad to see that, there was only 4 ESE issues that some of them have been resolved and you're working on. Little concerned about all the old cases, and I'm glad you've pulled some of them out and cleaned them up. But, I mean, there's some that have been hanging out there. And
on that score, the superintendent, our administrators, Sonia, the others are doing an amazing job on ESE. That we obviously we're working with them and with our outside counsel on ESE, but that's a big success story.
Yeah, well, thank you. But I was talking about some of those other ones where somebody was hurt and then it just sat there and nobody did anything. So I'm glad you're looking at those old cases and hoping getting those closed and moved forward. I appreciate you giving us this information, because I asked, how much is it costing us in legal fees? And it was like, and what are we paying it for? I've never seen it.
In order to understand your legal fees, and you don't yet understand them, but believe me, you will, it's not only looking at SLK's portion or the outside attorneys retained by SLK. Our legal is bigger than that. We have internal legal that's handled through administrators, and we have risk management. So legal is a bigger picture than SLK, and I want the policymakers to really understand what our legal is and where our risks are, et cetera.
Karen Rose.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's very much on the record that I did not have confidence in you, Mr. DeLeo, in representing every member of the board. And at this point in April, I'm looking in the rearview mirror, and I have to question transparency, and I question different figures coming within the same 24-hour period from 838,000 roughly compared to 701,000 roughly. And the standard of communication and actually even having this conversation as a superintendent presentation at a board meeting, I consider this to definitely be a past tense workshop conversation. You used phrases such as issues with the governor in Mass. I, as one board member, do not have those issues. And masks taken away as mitigation tool, and masks were not taken away as a mitigation tool. There was the option of a mask mandate that was optional and not as such that occurred here on this board. I'm not sure what this conversation, the ultimate is supposed to happen right now, but I'm respectfully asking for a workshop, which I consider to be past tense right now, considering we're looking at what the future holds with fees. Thank you.
Again, Member Rose, I'm happy to take direction, and you have my cell phone number. You certainly can contact me at any time. I will do anything that you ask within reason. I will, of course, come to a workshop. I'd love to have more time to be up here and talk about these issues because I care about them a lot. So I'm prepared to go ahead and do that, and I am disappointed that you still have an issue as it relates to me personally.
The issue, sir, is sitting in front of me and in the rear.
Bridget Ziegler.
Thank you. Well, so ironically, I know there's a lot of discussion, and this was brought up for clarification. I brought this up in October, actually. In October, but in a public workshop with you on December 7th, 2021. So that was the first time this was raised. So it wasn't February. But as ironically, as we talk about the fees, these discussions are board decisions. And all due respect, when there was one board member that made a decision that ultimately changed who was sitting at this dais, that is, in my mind, not appropriate. And so I don't believe these should be one-off conversations. I don't care who the vendor is. This is a responsibility as a fiduciary who's paying with taxpayer dollars to make these decisions not in isolation, but as a board working together. And even if I'm on the minority side of that, I think it is what is expected of this community. Moving forward, we mentioned that, again, well, first, Dr. Asplin, what's the budget? And I'm asking, I know you don't like to compare this, but again, we got this yesterday mid-afternoon, so and trust me, I've done plenty of research on this, so it's not that I'm not prepared, but didn't have an opportunity to reach out to other districts. What's the what's the budget size at St. John's? Is it comparable to ours? Yes. Is it comparable? Is the employee size comparable to ours?
Employee size is a little smaller.
Okay, and student body size? A margin of 8%, 5% probably?
They're right around 44,000.
Okay, so we're 43. Okay. My point being, and how much how much does St. John's spend, we've discussed this before, in general on legal counsel, general counsel? Again, I'm not going to quote you on specifics, but a ballpark.
Right. The general counsel last time that I checked was $105,000 for the year, but the person worked specifically with us in our school district, and that had to do with policies, board meetings, those normal items that you have every month.
Okay.
And then anything that had to be litigated or had to go beyond was hourly, and that included attorneys that would be regarded as subcontractors, basically.
Okay, and I am be very clear. That's not. I'm saying, and I want everything to be apples to apples. So I appreciate you pointing out. So when I look at the fees, and I think about historical, when we have hourly bill, especially when we have log public comment, and I do not want to get to a point where we're like, oh, we have to shut down public comment because of our legal fees. Sorry, that's just not the way this works. So we need to have a better function here, and that is where I understand, and we had this conversation, I get that as a new client we're a new client to Shoemaker, and so there are elements of which that there was a 25-year history with a former general counsel, of which things may have been billed differently. I'm very realistic to that, but I think that we have a responsibility of getting ahead of it and then reevaluating the scope of services, because there are a number of things mentioned here that we don't even understand our legal fees. Well, that's a problem for me. I mean, we need to understand our legal fees, and that should be presented. And I'm saying this broadly speaking, whether it be the superintendent or you as general counsel or the team lead, that needs to be presented of saying, hey, we have mid-year through seen that there are elements here. We are clearly going to exceed our not to exceed dollar amount, and then there are elements. I'm not penny wise and pound foolish. I can understand if this is presented that say there are some mitigation efforts. If we got ahead of it, that is realistic and that's transparent. But where I don't like is where we're backed into a corner where $100,000 out with 4 months left to be actually paid. That is unfair to everyone on this board. It is unfair to the community, and quite frankly, it's unfair to your firm because it's being put forward in a negative light. And so we're past time. And now we can only do what we can, but we need to evaluate the scope of services, what we do for the rest of this year, and then evaluate where we go for the next couple of years. And yes, to Mrs. Goodwin, I understand that you cannot predict every single thing, but there are controls that we are required to do when it comes to financial implications, and so that we put those guardrails in place. And if there are opportunities to expand upon that the Shoemaker firm could present to us, then we make those decisions on one-offs, but we can't just have a broad blank check, and that's to me that's fiduciary irresponsible.
There's no broad brush check, I don't think, but there are extenuating circumstances in this number, whether it's 819 or 701 or 748. There are some extenuating circumstances in that dollar figure, correct?
That is correct.
And so that's what we have to look at as well. It is not just what we would normally have paid for legal services. So yes, we probably need to workshop this, and we'll make arrangements to do that. But we are not going to make these decisions today, and we'll get through this and go forward and make some appropriate decisions at the next workshop, perhaps, if we have the time. Dr. Asplin, do we have the time?
Yes, we can place that on a workshop. I'm looking at workshop, May 10th workshop, and there's 9 items plus members' comment.
Something off.
And June 14th, there's another 7 items there, so we can just take something off.
Tom Edwards.
So I want to remind all the board members that this is a business decision and a business conversation, and it's one board member's opinion, what is fair and what isn't fair. They're all individual opinions, and who likes who and who doesn't like who, individual. This is a business decision. The cap that is on this contract was a cap that I brought up. Because much like you say, when you lift the hood, you don't really know what's under that. And it was a cap that I suggested to Mr. D'Elia when I interviewed all 5 of the attorneys. And I agree with a lot of what Mrs. Ziegler said about it's really hard to forecast. I'm frustrated with a lot of things that I've heard examined here tonight. I did not know that Mr. DeLeo was speaking in the superintendent's report until sometime yesterday, and that's I don't like that. I don't like being cut short. Second thing, the number did change from what I got yesterday to today. I don't like that. I can't prepare to vote and to talk when it's that fluid. So that's why I'm saying it's a business decision. We're jumping ahead about what I wanted to say in member comments, which is when I grabbed a bill just recently and examined the bill, I was shocked at how many people can pick up the phone and call an attorney and create billable hours. I was dumbfounded. So a comment that you just made that I think we all need to re-examine, which is it's Mitzi's responsibility and the school district's responsibility to know what the billable, no, I don't agree with that. I've been a vendor of a corporation, and I have now sit in the position of being, it's our responsibility to know what those fees are. And what I look at if I'm creating a forecast as a former business owner, I see that we're going to be close, most probably over, but close to that number that we talked about. And I think we're stirring the pot here for a lot and bringing up a lot of unnecessary angst that I hope we don't bring up when we get to that workshop and we are making business decisions. So I think we all need to look at our procedure and our process. One of the things that I had discussed with Mr. DeLeo was that there are $800 an hour billers at Shoemaker and $275, and then there's the paralegals. And we were going to start looking at how we could shove those numbers down in a lot of the different ways. We haven't had a chance to get to it as per the fact that this is where we're having this conversation. So I would like to see it on a workshop, not here at this board meeting, and I'd like to see it as quickly as possible. And procedures and solving the problem to the bottom line, I don't think we're that far. I think we're going to be able to fix this.
Shirley Brown.
So that we can compare apples to apples, I would like to find out what the legal fees are for some of the other districts for this year, the comparable size districts. And I know a lot of them have in-house attorneys, and what does that cost, or if they had extra cost. And I don't know, Jane, if you could get that from FSBA, or would you be able to get that from the Attorneys Association, or if somebody could get that between the three of you. We also, this is the first time the board has actually seen the costs of the lawyer's fees. We never had it before. And I know I had some concerns because, our other guy was great. He did all these things, but I didn't know what we were paying for. But I was shocked to find out that there was a board member that insisted on having the attorney with her at all meetings with the superintendent. And I'm like, well, that's costing us. How does this person get to demand that? And is that a cost that we should have anticipated? And I would hope that no board member takes that upon themselves to call on our attorneys at meetings that they have with any other employees of the district. So I want to make sure that we don't do something like that. But I know that was there in the past. And the other thing is, when do we need an attorney at the table? We used to have meetings that were over in half an hour. Our meetings are taking a lot longer than they ever have. We're already way past where we would have been in a meeting. We've got public comment now that runs. So that's another issue that we need to be thinking about when we're looking at what costs were then a year ago versus what costs are now. How much time is spent at board meetings and workshops, and is there a way to look at those things too? But I think if we're going to look at the cost, we need to compare it to what other districts are doing also. Thank you.
Karen Rose.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to clarify the verbiage used in extenuating circumstances to be the mask mandate, and I would like to publicly state when the chair is and board members are referencing comparisons to other districts and what our cost should be, that 58 out of the 67 districts in Florida did not choose to have that extenuating circumstance. So how extenuating is it? Thank you.
It's not just the mask, it's the whole COVID thing. You know, and how you treat employees. I mean, because I don't believe it's just the mask mandate. There's a lot of these things that are included had to do with COVID. How do we treat employees with COVID?
Substantiation of fees, Mrs. Brown. Not making a statement. I'm referencing the attorney's rationalization for the circumstance of extending beyond the contract at this time in the year, and I, as a board member, having to look in the rearview mirror of how did we get here and why. I'm using his verbiage, not mine.
Bridget Ziegler.
Thank you so much. Mr. Edwards, I regret that is the case because that's completely unfair to your point that you weren't aware that this is being brought up during superintendent's report, and I would argue that it's unfair to the public because they didn't know this is, and it's a very important decision. We as a board only have two major positions that we appoint, and that's the superintendent and that's the general counsel, outside of auditors and what have you. And so I do agree. This is a very important discussion, and I think I know that I have gathered information and had made sure that, again, I can't speak to other board members, but certainly over the past year have asked either Kathy or have forwarded over to you, so you guys had the same data that I had just as I was evaluating it on a quarterly basis out of concern of this is a new relationship, just being monitor and mindful of the costs that we would be incurring. And again, I look at this as exactly, I do not take this personally, I look at it as a business decision. It's very similar, as I said to Mr. DeLeo and to the superintendent, to what my firm's structure. And so I understand there are realities of adjustment and understand what's under that hood, but there is a fiduciary responsibility and a client-vendor relationship responsibility to bring that forward before we're back up against the wall. And so, and to my knowledge, I know that this has been requested for, I would argue, and Dr. Asplin, you would have to confirm this with me because I know you and I have had this conversation for months, which is why I felt I had to bring it up at the last meeting and said, we can't wait until the next workshop. We need to put this on now because we're going to be beyond the cap. And again, this is to all of our board members, all of our roles. It's not about whatever relationship. This is, to your point, it is a business decision. That is clearly how I look at it. So when I look at, again, where we're at today, and even hearing when we look at the May workshop, this is a priority. There are two positions that we appoint, and we can't statutorily go without one. Meaning we can't just, and I can't imagine Shoemaker wants to work for free. We have to figure out what this is, and we're well past that. So I would argue that if we can't properly fit it in to a workshop, and this is not something that can be rushed, I would like to see if it can be put on a workshop. That's great. Then most up the one in May. If not, I would believe, and trust me, I will work my schedule around it, that we have a special meeting to do so. My request of the general counsel, and I want to do this in a public meeting, not at a one-off because I don't want to add additional billable hours, is that we have a scope of services provided as to date. What has been, I know we have these a very detailed invoice, but if that can be provided as to what the current scope of services are, there have been a number of things mentioned in our conversations and even with staff that there are legal services that once upon a time were either directed by members of staff, and that, and I'm not saying one is wrong or one is right, but you have brought that up as a risk aspect. So I would think that if you can compile a scope of services and where things could directionally go, that allows this body to make a good business decision of how that relationship moves forward and figure out the fee structure, not just for the remaining 4 months that need to be billed, but also for the remaining 2 other additional years of the current contract.
Well, we will do that, and we will have a workshop. The next workshop, we will cover this. But where would we be had we chosen a Coral Gables law firm?
That's not my point.
It is my point, too, because I think this is important to understand. Shoemaker Loop is a great local attorney, a great firm, and we'll figure it out. We'll get better at this. We'll get better at a lot of the things that we need to prioritize within their contract. But this is not Shoemaker's issue. Shoemaker is not calling us up and trying to propose more hours and more legal services. This is a reflection of what exists in the school district, and we need to get control and get a handle on it, and we will do that. Dr. Asplin.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to mention about the timing and of this, and I do one thing I do want to do is apologize to the board members for placing this on the superintendent's report. Just trying to make sure that we're trying to do this in a timely fashion. And part of the reason for that too is, as Mr. DeLeo said, you know, he brought it up with our CFO back in February and was trying to figure out, you know, the separation between fees and costs. And so we were working together on that. And the objective there was to have that accomplished and then be able to have it on a workshop. And I know in his very, very busy schedule, he's been working on that February and March, given the fact there's so many items to look at. And we were going to place it on a board workshop, but they've been packed, and he was still working on those. But we got to a point where, okay, we're ready. Let's get it on there. We don't want to wait till May 10th. Let's get it on there at least so that everybody, all the board members can know. And that was honestly the reasoning behind all of that. And then the last thing I want to say is, we move forward, I think it's, I don't know what it is, 118,000 that's left there. And as we move forward, I just want you to know that at the last cabinet meeting, I did mention to, or talk to the cabinet members that we need to make sure everyone in the school district knows if they need to talk to our attorneys, they need to go through our cabinet members. And that will cut down on many people who aren't authorized to speak to our attorneys. And so we've done that. And then also, Mitzi, our CFO, is going to put a red flag out there so that when we hit 90% of that 819, a red flag will go up so that we'll know what it is, and we'll be able to bring that back and make sure that we don't exceed the 819,000.
Tom Edwards.
I just want to say that from a business decision standpoint, it's a line item in a $1 billion budget. And if I get close to that $838,000 number, then I think as a board, we've met our fiduciary responsibility. And what I don't want to do is discuss the mask policy. That is in the rearview mirror, to use a quote. And what normally happens in this, or should happen at this board, and as my experience with other boards, is when a decision is made by the board, it's made, done, move on. We are a collective board, and we stand together and work together as a board.
Team.
Thanks.
I think that wraps this item up. Anything else in the superintendent's report, Dr. Asplin?
Thank God.
The last item is, I just want to make sure that everyone understands, in case they want to attend the next board workshop, which is on May 10th. We are covering topics such as the ESE update, reading pilot, reading recovery and literacy lessons, strategic plan goal 4 progress monitoring, the operating budget, FSA grade calculation, college and career update, and the superintendent contract.
We can be here till 8 o'clock. Good. All right, thank you so much. Karen Rose.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to state for the record that my fellow board member will not decide what I say or don't say on this board. And as a matter of fact, if we want to get down to facts, probably following the law would save legal fees. And as a board member, I didn't choose to not follow the law. The majority of this board did. And your expectation for me to go along with that or support you in the rearview mirrors of the fees that it's cost will not occur.
That's enough. All right, the next up is my favorite part of the meeting, hearing of citizens. At this point in the meeting, we're going to hear from citizens wishing to speak who have completely filled out and submitted a citizen's card. If your full name is not written on the card, or you have failed to complete and sign the card, your name will not be called. Please speak to the board, not the audience. Furthermore, speakers addressing the school board shall not make remarks which are irrelevant to the business of the school board, or which are abusive, threatening, defamatory, obscene, profane, or otherwise of a disorderly nature. As such, it is not a forum for attacking individual employees or school board members. Any such complaints should be submitted in writing to the superintendent. It is unlawful to disrupt or interfere with a school board meeting, and any such action may result in a misdemeanor or offense of the second degree at the discretion of the presiding officer pursuant to Florida Statute 1001.372(3), which for purposes of public comment tonight is me. Any individual who interferes with the expeditious or orderly process of this meeting will be removed. This is a business meeting of the school board, and the public expects that we conduct it in an orderly, efficient, effective, and dignified manner. We humbly ask that you act as you were taught as a child, be respectful of others, and treat them as you would want to be treated. Finally, as public servants elected by the people of this county, we will listen with open minds and open hearts to your comments. We respect your First Amendment rights to freedom of speech, and as a citizen of this great country, you must understand that your rights are not absolute. So you are free to speak your mind, but you cannot defame an individual or yell fire in a crowded theater. With rights comes responsibility. So we begin. Mr. Edwards, do we have a number of cards? How many cards do we have?
We have 7 on agenda items. So we'll call Barbara Vaughn, Deborah Bryan, Judy Al-Rawi. Ms. Vaughn, if you're going to pray on an issue, an agenda item, I would just ask you to add our children that contemplated suicide this week and our homeless children and their families.
Absolutely. Father God, we come to you with hearts full of thanksgiving and praise for you, but also with sadness. There is so much unhappiness and disruption going on in the world, and especially awful things that are affecting our children. We ask you, Lord, to reach out and touch the hearts of children who are hurting, who need your tender care. We know that only you can solve the problems that bedevil them. It is the devil, Lord, and you know it and I know it. And we need to expel the evil from our children and from their parents and from their homes. Lord, we are embarrassed by the riches that we are so abundantly gifted with in this community. It's hard to even imagine the numbers, the figures that have been spoken of here tonight. It blows my mind, Lord, that we have this kind of riches in our county. We just pray, Lord, that you would guide and direct this board and be good fiduciaries of the taxpayers' dollars. Lord, we thank you for the young people who were here earlier tonight, for the musicians, for the basketball players, for the academics, and for all of our many outstanding young people. We give you thanks and praise, Lord, that you are working in these young people and helping them to attain the very best that is in them. And we thank you for parents and for teachers who help them achieve that. Thank you, Lord.
Thank you.
Amen.
Jennifer Cottrell. I'm looking for Deb Bryan is up. Judy El-Rawi is on deck. Jennifer Cottrell is behind her. If you come up to the queue so that you're all ready to go.
Superintendent Asplin, school board members, good evening. My name is Deb Bryan.
I have been a teacher in the school district since 1991 and currently teach at my alma mater, Riverview High School. I was the 2001 County Teacher of the Year, and even after all these years, I continue to love what I do and continue to be amazed at the changes that occur in the school district each year. Unfortunately, what has amazed me most about this year are the number of investigations of teachers and staff. These investigations have created unintended consequences and a very suspicious, negative, hostile work environment where school employees are pitted against employees, and most troubling, where students can make a false accusation and literally ruin a teacher's career. Here's how it works. A teacher will come to work, open their email first thing, and find an email saying they're under investigation. They have no idea who their accuser is. They cannot face their accuser. They are essentially guilty until proven innocent. And the accuser can remain in the accused teacher's classroom every single day. Teachers come to work feeling physically ill from this. Some have taken a leave of absence, some have had to seek medical help, and more. After weeks and sometimes months of students being pulled out of teachers' classes or students being pulled out of other classes to be questioned by an investigator about their teacher, and yes, this means they are missing valuable classroom time. The teacher is finally sent another email with a series of questions that explain what the complaint is about, and then they have 24 hours in which to defend themselves before they are called in during class time to be questioned by the investigator. Once the process ends, it takes many weeks to find out what the resolution is, and then no one even knows what happens to all the paperwork. What happens to students who file false accusations? Nothing that we know of. But guess what? They are free to make another complaint against a teacher they don't like. I know colleagues who find out they're under investigation and spend more time trying to find out what they allegedly did, how to defend themselves, how to muster the will to even show up every day than what they were hired to do, which is teach. Sadly, teachers' mental health and morale is at an all-time low. Many teachers censor themselves out of fear. As one colleague said recently, every moment in front of students has become a liability. I long for the day when I can go to my school and say I am part of Ram Nation and not investigate.
Thank you.
Alexis Spiegelman.
There is no clapping allowed. I'm going to start asking you to leave. Consider this a warning. I have seen who is clapping. I have a televised screen here that I can see more closely. This is not acceptable, so do not clap again.
Superintendent Asplin, Sarasota County School Board members, and directors of elementary, middle, and high schools. Good evening. My name is Judy Arawi. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. This is part of the First Amendment guaranteed to citizens in the United States Constitution. Knowing this, should schools in the Sarasota County School District have a day off for Jewish and Muslim religious holidays like our Christian friends do for Christmas? According to the Sarasota County Schools website, under the Human Resources tab, it states that the Sarasota County School Board prohibits discrimination in its educational programs, services, or activities on the basis of race and religion. However, as far as I'm concerned, holding school on a religious high holy day is considered discrimination, which contradicts the statements outlined on the school board website. Moreover, not all religions are being included. To put this in perspective, imagine waking up on Christmas morning, excited to open your gifts, but your parents tell you it's time to get ready for school. Would you beg your parents to allow you to stay home or decide to value your education and lug the day through school? This is exactly like how the Jewish and Muslim community feel about having to decide whether they should observe their holiday or benefit from their education every single year, multiple times even. In Islam, we only have 2 high holy days, Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr, and Judaism has the high holy days of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Finally, students and teachers will miss important instructional time. What I mean by this is if a student decides to participate in their high holy day, they will have makeup work to complete. If there was an exam taken that day, the student will have one to make up. In a way, Jews and Muslims are being punished for not being in the majority religion of Christianity. I know if I end up skipping school for Eid, I have to spend around 2 to 3 hours of my religious holiday making up and learning what was taught in school that I had missed. On top of this, the teachers expect the work that was missed to be made up by the date of return, which violates school board policy, but it happens anyways. Should schools in the Sarasota County School District have days off for Jewish and Muslim high holy days? Based on what I told you tonight, I hope you'll agree with me and change the school board calendar in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Wilson.
Hello, Jennifer Cottrell. Good evening. I'd like to express my concern over the policy on recording of non-public meetings with employees of the district. The policy states that recording of an IEP meeting only apply if the parent of the student has a disability, a language barrier, or has an impairment that would prevent them from understanding or participating in the IEP process. As a parent who has attended many IEP meetings, I would say it is hard to sit in a room full of 6 to 10 people and be able to grasp and retain what everyone has to say. They are going over so much information, with most of it you are hearing for the first time. These meetings are very fast-paced. As a parent, you are trying to hear what everyone has to say, absorb it, and make sure the proper accommodations are in place for your child. It is a lot even for the most focused parent. You come out of the meetings with your head spinning and trying to recall everything that was brought up and talked about. Things get missed with all the conversation that takes place. Having the ability to record can make it easier to go back and listen to later. Parents are not posting the recordings on the for public view. Nobody wants to air their child's learning disabilities to the world. We are trying to make sure we completely understand what the issues are with our child and what we can do as a team to help our student be successful. This same recording can help the district as well. If there is ever a need to go back and clear up a misunderstanding, you have it on record, and not going by what someone recalls being said. Takes away from the whole he said, she said aspects and puts it back into what really took place. It's a win-win for everyone. I mean, we all have the same goal, right? To make sure each student is provided with the best education and that they are successful. We want to work with our teachers and staff to make sure the students' needs are addressed. Nobody is out to crucify anyone. We just wanted to better understand what we can do to help support our students. I hope you reconsider and allow any and all parents to record if they feel the need to. At the end of the day, we are only trying to support our student. Thank you.
Melissa Bakandi.
Good evening, members of the board. Alexis Spiegelman, Moms for Liberty, Sarasota County. I'd like to address the Parents' Bill of Rights marked as item 44 on the agenda. To begin with, your definition of a parent is inconsistent with the definition according to FERPA. Under FERPA, a parent is defined as a natural parent, a guardian, or an individual acting as a parent in the absence of a parent or guardian. As you know, this definition includes step-parents, grandparents, and other family members or persons responsible for the care of the child on a day-to-day basis who is not his or her natural parent or guardian. In the second paragraph, I would like to suggest that you adopt the language used in the Parents' Bill of Rights. A parent of a minor child in this state has inalienable rights that are more comprehensive than those listed in this section. And then also, the rights of a parent of a minor child in this state may not be limited or denied. Regarding item 15 on the agenda, an agreement between the district and Jewish Children and Family Services to provide counseling. As recent events have exposed, many of these organizations both employ and act as training programs for practitioners who are either newly or provisionally licensed. Some of these licenses used only weeks before the clinicians begin treating our children. The required supervision of these clinicians has proven inadequate and has exposed the district to significant liability. Parents are not notified of the tenure or licensing of status of the practitioners, thus their consent for treatment is not fully informed. Treating our most vulnerable children without direct supervision or fully informed consent is inappropriate and should be addressed within this agreement. Furthermore, nothing within this agreement precludes the assignment of staff who are active participants within Florida's Impaired Provider Program, a program that exists to supervise and rehabilitate clinicians with recent and substantial personal issues. It is not appropriate to have clinicians who are under direct state sanctions treating our children. As an example, I think we can agree that counselors who are under active sanction for having a recent substance abuse issue should not be counseling our children, at least until they have been released from their sanctions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John Wilson. I want to make sure that we compare our district legal fees to a district that didn't have a mask mandate. As far as I'm concerned, you three, here, this is my favorite saying, how do we break the law? That is the difference in the legal fees. That's the difference. So if you guys want to pay Dan DeLeo more money, maybe you should get second mortgages on your houses, because you three are responsible for that. And if Dan wants more money, I say suck it up, Buttercup, because he doesn't need any more money. Now, let's move on to Agenda 33. Oh, your civility. Let's go to its civility. Sitting here at this meeting, I've watched Tom not civil many times.
Let's be careful, Mr.
Hey, you're warned by wasting my money.
Let's be
You're
careful.
warned. So everybody wants to come here and not be civil at the board meetings or workshops, but then you want to come, you want to have a civility policy and a recording policy. Well, the civility policy and the recording policy, you know, it's a matter of respect. And people in your district do not respect the parents, okay? Until we have respect, don't ask for civility because you have to earn it. It's not earned here, okay? Here's a perfect example. I had a parent reach out to me. They have a child at Fruitville Elementary. You know, Fruitville Elementary only lets you walk your child to class 1 day a month. You know, that's not Dusty French's Kingdom over there. That is a Sarasota County public school. There's people that want to go ahead and volunteer there. You know why they won't volunteer? Because your little commandant over there won't let them on campus. These things have to change in this district. This is not anybody's special district. This is the parents' district. You know, I remember you want respect, and I respect a lot of your people. There's a lot of your people I don't respect, and you don't want to earn it.
Thank you.
Board members, Dr. Asplin, my name is Melissa Bacandi, and I'm here to bring persistent public pressure to the Sarasota County School Board to be in the sunshine. First of all, how did all these new policies end up on the agenda without workshop discussion? Where is the transparency? Agenda item number 35, revised policy 3.17, proposes that there will be no IEP recordings unless the parent has a disability or speaks another language. Does this proposed policy put the student first? Who does it benefit? Have any of you board members actually been in an IEP meeting? This contributes to the lack of distrust in our community and decreased transparency from the Sarasota County School District. With Sarasota County's history of the DJ case and falsifying documents, systemic corruption that has not even been rectified, this does not play well with the public trust.
Mrs. Bacandi.
I encourage you to remain in the sunshine. Put the student and the family first, Miss Jane. Be transparent and allow parents to do what's best for their children. Let them record their IEP meetings. This is not medical information. This is part of the district's duty, and there shall be nothing to hide. Agenda item 29, telehealth mental health services to be added to employees' health insurance. My question is, does this apply to school board members? Because at the last meeting, Shirley Brown was caught on the microphone talking about big balls.
About school board
Her
members.
exact
You're done.
words.
You're done, Mrs. Bacandi. You're done. Thank you. You're done. You cannot go and expound on school board members. I've told you. I've warned you several times. Thank you. Thank you very much. You're done. Move on.
Okay.
Goodbye. You were about to say something horrible about Shirley Brown. Please leave. You've said things about me that were untrue. Leave, please. Do you have children in our school district? Do you have children in our school
Point of order, that is not appropriate.
It is.
No way is that appropriate. You don't get to ask people who come to a public meeting whether they have children or not, period. Way out of line.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Please leave. You should please leave. Ask her to leave. We're going to recess for 5 minutes. Leave. I know that you're running for school board.
We're not giving her the right parents outside of our schools.
Okay, Amy, can you test again?
Test, test, test.
Okay, thank you.
Test, test.
We can hear you.
She said that I stole $8,000 in 2018 from the referendum. Don't start with me. Oh, you're so pious. Let's get started again, please. Mr. Edwards?
Yeah, just for, so that we have clarification on that last public comment about, it was on the card here that that particular speaker was to speak on agenda item 35. I believe a comment that a board member made on a hot mic is not associated to agenda 35. So, you know, who's right or who's wrong or what's the point of order? I would think that we have to do a better job of making sure that our public speakers are sticking close to the comments or the agenda items that they say they're going to be speaking on.
Next. Mrs. Brown?
Also, there was discussion that, that said that policy was never talked about in a workshop. And that policy on, I think we talked about the recording of IEP minutes a few times at workshops, and I think it was even discussed at a board meeting.
Call the next person.
We're done. Thank you for your comments.
Wonderful. Okay. So moving right along to the next item on the agenda. Dr. Asplin, do we have any additions or corrections to our consent agenda?
Yes, we have one addendum was added to item number 8, the instructional classified personnel report.
I'd like to move the consent agenda as amended.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Please vote. Motion carries.
Wait, but I'm still trying to find my, I don't know how these kids do these tests. My mouse is all over the place. I can't find it. I can find my mouse. I can't find my cursor. I try to push it. Oh, there it is. Sorry.
The motion carries unanimously. Next up is new business. We have a series of policies, and may I have a motion, please?
Item 33, I move that we approve we move to approve the advertising of new school board policy 2.35, respect and civility in schools and district offices.
Second. Any discussion? Bridget Ziegler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Asplin, these changes were brought about by the new relationship we have with NEFAC?
Are you talking specifically about 2.35, right?
Well, I mean, starting with 2.35, if you want to elaborate on any other ones, but starting with this one.
Yeah, so from NEFAC, the comments that we received for this particular civility in schools and district offices was policy was to address recent meeting and school disruptions. And if you recall, too, NEFAC serves many districts, and they have received information from other districts as well that they need to create a policy to address this issue.
Thank you. So there's a couple, and there's a lot in here that sounds wonderful. So certainly when you think of respect and civility in schools and district offices, and I'd argue school board meetings, is critical. There are elements within it that I believe are chilling in a manner that they don't say shall versus it is may, and it seems as though it is up to the discretion of the administrative aspect, of which I want to be very clear that I have a lot of faith in those people who work within our district. But when the balance and the scales are not balanced, I have concerns. Additionally, I find it ironic that we would be putting forward respect and civility when I see the behavior and hear off-mic conversations from my fellow board members who behave very foolishly. And when you see little eyes are watching, it is critical. But at the end of the day, as my responsibility from a board member, I worry very much about some of the language within here that seems tilted. And again, I'm not a huge fan of some of the products that NEFAC has provided. So I will be voting this down.
Shirley Brown.
I didn't quite understand what part of this you did not, I didn't get in what you were saying, what language you were opposing in this. I don't know if you want to clarify that or not. I think this is good and it's needed right now because just like there's been some uncivil acts at the board room, there also were some uncivil acts and threats made at schools. And I think it's important that we do this so that we all know the actions that are expected and the actions to be taken at schools. I'm not sure where you're talking about the shalls. I'm looking for a shall. I'm not seeing a shall. But I think it's important to lay it out, to let our staff know that that we support them and we support our students and we want our schools safe and for people to comport themselves in a civil manner.
I think this policy is very needed. I think we've needed it for some time. It connotates exactly what it is saying, and it does so in finite terms, which I think are necessary at this day and age. Principals are having problems. People are showing up at schools that have no business at schools and have no students in schools. And we are very cautious and careful about who we let into the schools and go down the halls and that sort of thing. And it is one of keeping kids safe. And so for that reason, I will be supporting it. Karen Rose?
Thank you, Madam Chair. With the updated safety procedures that have been put in our schools with the entryways and such, I know you can't gain entry without going through the protocols that you've mentioned. And as a principal and a teacher, I understand the need for support and have felt that was there in an incredibly ideal fashion and continues to be, whether it was with law enforcement through the Sheriff's Department or our current Sarasota County Schools Police, which we rely on. I am a proponent of protocol and civility and respect being modeled on this dais and for it to start there. I take hesitation with how this came about and the things that have occurred, so I will not be supporting it.
Shirley Brown.
I also wanted to point out Section 4, parent recourse. If a parent is treated in an unacceptable or disruptive behavior on the part of a staff member, it actually tells them what actions they can take too. So it's a two-way street. And I know that, sometimes parents show up at a school and it has nothing to do with masks or teachers or whatever. There's a dispute between the parents over who should pick up the child. And, and I think they need to know that you can't have those kinds of fights in a school. Those things are to be held in court or off campus. But bad behavior is not good for any of us.
Please vote. And the motion carries 3-2 with Member Ziegler and Member Rose abstaining. Next item, please. May I have a motion?
Item 34, I move the approval to advertise the school board policy 2.9, smoking and tobacco-free environment.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please vote.
I was going to explain that this was a rewrite of our current policy. I think it kind of clarified, pulled things together in a better way, because ours was rather pieced together.
Please vote. And the motion carries unanimously. Next item.
Item number 35, I move the approval to advertise the school board policy, new school board policy 3.17, recording of non-public meetings with employees of the school district.
Be approved for advertisement.
Approved to advertise,
Yep.
yes.
Second. Any discussion? Shirley Brown?
This is a difficult policy for me because I do understand how IEP meetings are confusing and difficult sometimes to remember everything that's being said. But our staff has taken steps to help educate the parents who have students even before they have to have an IEP meeting, and have given them resources that they can reach out to help. But I have been assured that agendas go out before an IEP meeting to parents. Agendas should go out. And I think the parents should have the agenda, and I believe that the parents should also reach out to who's ever calling the IEP meeting and propose those questions that they have and ask them to be answered and take notes at the meeting. I can understand why some of our staff are concerned about being recorded because we are in a gotcha environment right now. I know things that I have said get taken out of context and posted on social media. And we have staff that are concerned, on the one hand, that they might be taken out of context and posted on social media, but also that it might stifle open discussion in these IEP meetings. Another concern I would have is that the IEP meeting, the recording is then taken home and perhaps played where the student or the brothers or sisters might be able to hear it. And that might be a problem too. I'm sure that caring parents that are here would never do something like that. But we have others that I do believe would do something like that. And I don't think it would be good for any student, whether they were a part of that meeting or their name was brought up in the meeting, to then be put out there on social media. But I am concerned if the answer I need to have right now is, do we give an agenda before an IEP meeting so the parents know what to expect?
Sonia, can you come up, please?
Good evening. Yes, parents are notified and are invited to the school IEP meeting. So there's always notifications about the IEP meeting. Parents can submit topics of concern and discussion. And at the IEP meeting, they also can receive a draft of the IEP if they request that so prior to the meeting. This is for non-public school, and it does allow an exception for the parents to provide if they, for any reason, are asking for recording. We always take notes. Parents can also include their notes attached to the IEP. And for any reason that they might have difference of opinions about the conversations that took place, they can also invite anyone to the meeting and is accepted to be part of those conversations.
Dr. Asplin, perhaps you could answer this question, or maybe Sonia. How do other districts handle this? How many other districts record their meetings?
I don't know really how many other districts record their meetings. Again, I will tell you there's a couple of items on here that I can express. First of all, with NEFAC, the recording policy is new, and the policy was to address parents' use of smartphones and recordings of meetings and so forth. Amy Pitch, is she on the line?
Yes, sir, she is.
Yeah. Amy Pitch is our ESE attorney. I know she can speak to this as well. Sonia, if you could also let us know, I know with recordings, as long as everyone at the table is amenable to be recorded, we will record.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yes. And how often is it that we do not record because not everyone is amenable to recording?
Well, our goal is always to have a collaborative conversation at the IEP meeting. And there are times that if an employee is not, because there's public loss for that employee, is not wanting to be recorded, then we try to mediate in terms of who are the required members to remain as part of the IEP, because the process cannot stop. And Amy's here and she can verify and clarify further in terms of we're looking about collaborative conversations about students designed for an education. So if an employee decides, no, I don't want to be recorded, then we try to have amicable mediation in terms who needs to remain in that meeting, but we cannot prevent from the process to move on. So parents always have a right to bring someone to the meeting, bring note takers, take notes, attach the notes as part of the IEP, which is a summary of that conversation. Mrs. Pitch, you're on the line?
Yes, I'm here. Good evening. Do you want me to speak to this a little bit?
Yes, please.
Sure. So I helped with the language of this policy, and it really does strike a balance between the rights of school board employees and the rights of parents. It also reflects the state of both federal and state law. There is no right to record in the state of Florida, but there are cases that basically say that if a parent has, a disability or an impairment or a language barrier that would make it hard for them to have full participation, meaningful participation, then that can be accommodated via an audio recording. So this policy is intended to strike a balance between those interests. And I will tell you that policies like this proliferate throughout the state of Florida. I can tell you that Miami-Dade has a similar policy, Orange County, St. Johns County. So a lot of large counties have similar policies because, again, this policy really does track what the law says about balancing the right to privacy against the right to meaningful participation. So that was the intent of this. And as Sonia said, there are many different ways that parents can ensure that they have meaningful participation outside of recording, such as taking their own notes, bringing note takers, asking to stop the meeting for clarification, asking to review notes at the end of the meeting, contributing items for agenda prior to the meeting, receiving drafts prior to the meeting. And Sarasota County is very good at doing these things. So that is the intent of this. It's certainly not to in any way squelch parents' rights to be meaningful participants. And I know that this issue did come before the Florida legislature, and they decided not to pass into law a statute that would require unfettered recording. And so at some future point, if they choose to do that, this policy could be changed. But at this point in time, that is not the right. And so we have this balancing act. And I think this policy does a good job of balancing those various interests.
So this policy does not say you can't record it. What the policy says is you can request that they be recorded. And if that request is denied, that the principal or that designee has to give the reasons in writing why it's being denied. I mean, so it's not saying a denial across the board. A parent can ask for it, and the notes can be made, and any notes that a parent makes can be added to the file.
Right.
Thank you.
Karen Rose.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will not be supporting this policy. I believe that I'm very confident that the overwhelming majority of individual education plan meetings that occur in our district are quite successful. I hold myself accountable that every parent meeting for an individual education plan would have this opportunity to record, knowing that at least for the last 5 years, and currently that our students, our special needs students that are eligible to take the state assessment, which means that we're not talking about cognitively impaired students. The students that take that assessment, only 27% of those students are scoring at grade level reading, and we have not shown any improvement. I feel strongly that we should be going above and beyond in partnering with our families and looking at, this policy. And I think there's always a way to respect everyone's rights. And I speak from experience. I speak from 30 years of experience. There's always a way to go above and beyond, support our families, and in particular, support our students with special needs. So I will not support this policy as it stands.
Bridget Ziegler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I may address a question to Mrs. Pitch, if she's still on the line, or does she go? She gone?
I'm here.
Oh, thank you so much. You had mentioned this reflects state and federal law. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is it not true that federal and state law are silent on this matter?
No, actually, there are decisions from the Florida Division of Administrative Hearings that speak specifically to the issue of recording of IEP meetings, and they state that there is no right to record on the part of the board or the parents.
And where is that?
It's the Jackson case. I can provide that citation after the fact if you'd like.
No, actually, I read it. I think, okay. So thank you for that clarification. And I think there are two issues at that one that I had read through, and Dr. Asplin and I spoke about that. But I'm going to move to Sarasota County specifically, and I know that that the district has had a long history of accommodating the request of parents for recording. And as Mrs. Rose eloquently stated that, and I agree with, that I have substantial faith in our staff and the role of which they want to find the best remedy. I also come at this as a parent, having had sat through some of these meetings, and I cannot diminish how, while you have the most impassioned, thoughtful people in that room, you have 10 plus people in that room, and it is your child, and you're talking about jargon that is the first time coming at you in a number of ways. And I mean, we have people come here on all different issues, speak about their children, and you can see them get emotional. And I think you have to put your mind into that framework when you're thinking about a 504 and IEP meeting. If at a public meeting someone, and even very positive discussion, has a hard time and gets choked up, it's because that's what happens when you're talking about issues with your children. And I mean this in the perfect setting where everyone is on board trying to work through it. It is emotional, and a lot of things are coming at you, and it is not a gotcha, but it is intended to balance the scales and ensure a win-win, as was stated before. I am, it's no secret, I have certainly worked at this at the state level. I will continue to work at this at the state level, but as I sit on this board, I would like us to be the leader and not defer to see what Tallahassee does. I would like us to lead with the aspect that we've always done for 20 plus years. And when I hear from people in the community, again, this is similar to the public comment, where there are a number of people who on certain issues oftentimes find themselves opposite of it. This one is one where it's very unified and want to support, and it comes down to, it doesn't matter what the issue is, it is balancing the scales for a win-win. I regret that it's been utilized as a inferred that it's being done in a tactic as a gotcha. I reject that, and I don't think that that's at all where it is. And wherever that's come from, I want to think about the harm that this can provide to families just being able to advocate for their children. I want to remind everyone here, and again, I'm taking this in the most positive aspect, that we have well-intended, very knowledgeable people. We have the money, the resources, the time, and it's not your child where it, and I know we look at all our children, but you have to understand those scales and what a disadvantage and what a message that sends to a family for whatever reason to record. I'm actually going to make an amendment, and I move to strike all below item under strike exceptions and leave it as the school board is committed to providing parental legal guardians with the opportunity to meaningfully participate in the process of identifying, evaluating, and programming for students with disabilities. Therefore, audio recordings defined as using any device or object to record voices and sounds that may be reproduced or reviewed may be allowed when a parent or legal guardian provide a written request within 3 days prior to the scheduled meeting for an IEP or a 504. That is my motion.
And I second that motion.
Point of order.
Yes, Mrs.
We've discussed before changing the language of a policy without having something written in front of us. And so if we want to go forward with this, I would recommend that we get what your language is in writing so we can look at the two of them and make a decision. Or perhaps what we need to do is pull the item and move it to next work session or the next meeting.
Well,
because I'm not prepared to vote on something I can't see and read. And I'm sorry, but she talks real fast, and I have a hearing issue. I don't know what she said.
I can go slower if you'd like.
No, I think you've gone well into what you think, Mrs. Ziegler. So you've got a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion?
Can I address her comments?
We're discussing the motion.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Shall we take a voice vote?
Well, I was going to speak to the motion too. I think the motion is out of order because we've discussed not doing these types of things
Yes.
at the board meeting before, and also while we are here representing parents and students, we are also here representing staff. And we heard from a staff member earlier today about staff feeling they're being attacked.
Oh, yes.
And so I'm here. I'm supporting staff too in this. And I heard that staff, if they want to record, we'll work with them on that. And so I'm prepared to vote on the.
Tom Edwards had a question for the original motion. Do we go back to Tom, or do we finish out this and then go back?
If there's no more debate on the motion that's pending, I would suggest that you dispose of the motion that's pending. You have a motion that's been properly
Yes.
moved and seconded
So-
and discussed.
Amy?
Oh, sorry.
Amendment.
Attorney Pitch, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm here.
Do you have something that you would like to say on this amendment to the motion?
Yes. So, I've been an attorney for 22 years, and 16 of those years I've spent sitting in IEP meetings pretty much almost every day of the week. So I've been to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And I will tell you that recordings do have a chilling effect on collaboration. I have noticed, especially with the advent of social media, that employees are less willing to share their honest opinions. And a lot of times they will tell me or administrators behind the scenes, but they're afraid to voice them in meetings. And part of that is because, and I have seen this, sometimes parents do excerpt recordings and put them on social media without context. And that can be very damaging to the employee who has no ability pursuant to FERPA to clear the air. So they are muzzled. So there are some concerns, and I will tell you too, as somebody who defends you all in hearings, I've never had a parent bring one of these recordings to a hearing, but I have had parents, a few, utilize them on social media to try to hurt employees that they're angry at. And I think that that's a rare occurrence, but it does happen. And I have seen this chilling effect, and I will tell you that other attorneys who do what I do, we talk to each other and we see it too. So this policy is intended to strike a balance between that chilling effect and those privacy rights, and then also the rights of parents who have needs that would make recording important for their meaningful participation, and that's why it's been drafted in this manner.
Thank you. Do we have any other thoughts or comments on this amendment to the motion? Hearing none, let's take a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay.
No.
Nay. So the motion fails 3-2 with Mrs. Ziegler and Mrs. Rose voting yay, and Tom Edwards, Shirley Brown, and Jane Goodwin voting nay. Let's go back to the original motion. Mr. Edwards, you have discussion.
So I think there's a big misnomer that only a couple of board members are interested in parent rights. And I need to just, before I comment on that policy, say how absolutely unfounded and untrue that is. There is no better student outcome ever that a parent and a student and a teacher and their principal are 100% involved in that student's outcome. And there's no better education when that happens. So, and that's what I believe in, and I need to say that for the record. There are parents who are in this room who think that I'm making that up, but that is my belief. So when I look at an IEP meeting, and when we had these discussions, I would say almost a year ago, and it was, I think Mrs. Ziegler brought up a discussion about policy and recordings because she wanted to know what the policy was for that particular, and we had much discussion. And I remember hearing from an educator that when a parent requests the recording out of anger, stop that IEP immediately and go back to the beginning and start over, because that reduces the collaboration, that reduces the outcome for that student to be of its highest value. And I took that to great heart. And I went back in, and Dr. Asplin knows this, and I spoke to all and everyone concerned to find better ways to improve those IEP meetings, better ways. And so so in my mind, right now, there's a policy that allows for all IEP. If they ask for it, they have an opportunity to get it. And I have yet to hear that it was denied. I've yet to hear that when it's asked to, so we're once again passing a policy to create a solution for a problem that doesn't exist. And that's my frustration, from the laws of Tallahassee to the conversation that goes right down to this policy. You're asking me to vote on putting something into place to solve a problem that does not exist in our school district. When a parent asks for it because another parent can't attend the meeting and they want it recorded, it gets recorded. When a parent requests because it's a language barrier, it gets recorded. And I have yet to hear of any denial. And when there's a disagreement, they do in fact start over and try to find resolution and make sure that everybody walks out of that room or out of that meeting with satisfaction. And that's the point. And so that's the frustrating part here, is that we do believe in what's in the best interest of the student, and we do want the parents to be involved, and their rights are essential for the highest level of student outcome. And that's why I'm supporting this policy.
Shirley Brown.
I had unclicked my request because Mr. Edwards said what I would have wanted to say.
Well, he said it all, didn't he? He said everything that I think as well. So if there is no other discussion, please vote. And the motion carries 3-2 with Mrs. Ziegler and Mrs. Rose voting nay. Next motion, please. Item number 36.
I was going to sit back and let someone else make the motions.
I'll make it that the revised school board policy 5.14, homeless students, be approved for advertisement.
Second.
I would just say that this is something near and dear to my heart, and I did speak with Ellen McLaughlin about this policy, and she had reviewed it. So that made me happy. So I think we're in good shape with this. And any other discussion? Please vote.
I guess I'm a little surprised we don't have a discussion on something that's such an important issue. Homeless students, numbers are increasing.
And the motion carries unanimously. Well, I think it is an important issue, but I don't think that there were a lot of changes. There were just very few changes to be made. And we do have more students in Schoolhouse Link than we've had in a while. I agree with you there. Next item, number 37. May I have a motion?
I make a motion for the approval of the revised School Board Policy 5.56, School Health Services.
Wait a minute, you skipped one.
Oh, I'm sorry, 36?
37.
That's where I was. Still homeless students, approval.
No, use of
there it
timeout.
came. Got it. Approval to advertise revised School Board Policy 5.343, use of timeout, seclusion, and physical restraint for students with disabilities.
Second.
Any discussion? Bridget Ziegler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to point out, again, I know we didn't workshop any of these, and I recognize we have a lot on our workshop, but for the viewing public to clarify, these changes are as a result of statutory changes, or are there any additions? Dr. Asplin, if you could speak to that, or anyone, a member of staff, just to make sure we're all clear.
Sonia's on her way up.
To all, this policy is updated based on changes to legislation and really to provide training and ongoing training to our staff and our providers in terms of providing positive support for our students who are in need of de-escalation to be able to attend to a learning environment. So all the changes here are to reflect legislation changes.
Hearing no other discussion, please vote.
I applaud you getting them up here to change so quickly, too, after they just passed.
And the motion carries unanimously. That wasn't me. Next item is number 38, right? Yes, 38. May I have a motion, please?
Make a motion for the approval of the revised School Board Policy 5.56, School Health Services.
Be approved for advertised.
Be approved for advertising.
May I have a second? I'll second it. Second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion carries. Mrs. Brown, did you vote?
Didn't confirm it.
Motion carries unanimously. May I have the next item, number 39, please?
Motion for approval to advertise the revised school board policy 5.61, student illness for advertisement.
Second.
Any discussion? Shirley Brown.
I have a clarification. We didn't change any of the language. We just added a statute reference to it, it looks like. That was all that was done? I think so. Again, responsive to things that are happening in Tallahassee.
And getting it done early.
Getting it
Great.
done.
Which is just great.
This particular one revises the policy to reflect statutory change 1014.06 Parents' Bill of Rights.
And I'm sure that the governor has already signed it, knowing NEFAC. Okay.
Hearing no other discussion, please vote. The motion carries unanimously. Next item, please. Item number 40.
Motion for approval to advertise the revised school board policy 5.62, administration of medication during school hours for advertisement.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. And the motion carries unanimously. Next up, item number 41. May I have a motion, please?
Motion for approval to advertise the revised school board policy 7.22, electronic records, electronic signatures, and electronic funds for advertisement.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. And the motion carries unanimously. Next up, item number 42.
Make a motion that the school board policy 8.17 emergency disaster be approved for advertisement.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please vote.
I think I need a new battery in my mouse. There you go.
Mrs. Brown?
I got it.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously. Next up, item number 43.
I make a motion that the revised school board policy 8.55 designation of school facilities be approved for advertisement.
Second.
Discussion, Mrs. Brown?
We've added some things into the policy, but I want to, we got a letter from somebody asking us to name a high school, the new high school down on Northport. We have a policy, and I think that person, it meets the policy, but we also have a procedure. The school board itself makes the final vote, but we have a procedure where the parents and the community and the school get together and they make recommendations to the school board on which, what name we would accept. So we don't do the naming up front. There's a procedure where we go through the school district, the school, and the community makes the decision on the names to the board. And we don't have the procedure, we don't have that, but we just have the policy.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Next item 44. May I have a motion, please?
Make a motion that the new school board policy 9.11 parental rights and responsibilities be approved for advertisement.
Second. Discussion. Bridget Ziegler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate this, and I know I've actually had a lot of people even recently reach out to me because of the number of impacts, and there were some areas that I know are driven predominantly statutorily, but some of the language, and I know this is just for advertisement. However, I know, again, we didn't workshop this, but there was a proposed one, and if the superintendent could highlight any of the additional changes that was initially proposed and then what's been added. I know there were questions about, excuse me, as far as it goes to the right of the registering parent. Also, if there were, and also the item that was referenced recently during public comment as far as the definition of parent and it not aligning to the statutory language. I know it's been a long meeting, so I wanted to suggest, I move that we would table this to workshop it briefly at our next meeting so that we could go through those items properly and then advertise it accordingly. and that if the superintendent wants to address those questions or what have you.
Really, what I'll say about this is that, and Mike McKinley, maybe you can chime in, but I believe it was Mr. Duggan who helped us with this, and we took it straight from the law.
By and large, this tracks the Parental Bill of Rights.
So, follow up, Madam Chair. So the language, it pertains to the broad term of parent, so there is no additional aspect of how we manage that from a step parent, et cetera.
Madam Chairman, I think we're talking about two slightly different things.
Okay.
There's administrative procedure which the superintendent has presented and discussed, I don't want to speak for him, but a few meetings ago about that issue.
Okay.
About the registering parent, and that doesn't, in a detailed, narrow sense, come under this. This is an umbrella over those concepts, but we're talking about the general and the specific.
Okay. And
this is the general.
understood. And Dr. Aspen, is that something that can be brought forward so there's clarity? Because there seems that I had a handful of questions on that.
Yes, if you're talking about the procedure as far as parental rights and picking up a child, dropping off a child, those kinds of items, yes, we have a procedure for that, and I can make sure that the board all receive that.
Okay. And
But it's not part of the policy.
No.
It's just our procedure at our schools so that our principals know what to do.
Shirley Brown.
As they said, this policy follows what the law said, and there are some, I believe, questions in what the law says also. Because what is the definition of a parent, and should it have been expanded? And we may see, the legislature looking at this and making changes, but right now, I think we have to have our policy following what the law is. I have concerns, like the right to make healthcare decisions. Well, what happens if a child falls or gets a scrape? I mean, if a teacher puts on a Band-Aid, are they making a healthcare decision? I heard a girl broke her arm and had to sit and wait for the parent to come to call 911. I mean, I just think that, these are all some issues on it. But one thing I think it does say is it's the right, most of these rights are, it's for the, number one, the right to direct the upbringing, moral and religious training, education, and care of his or her minor child, and to enroll each child in a public school. And then it gives way to do the safety, because I think it's important that these parental rights are for your child. And as Dr. Aspen has said, we often have one parent may want this, and doesn't or objects to this, and another parent, no, I support that. So you have your right for your child. That's why we allow you to opt out of things. But you don't have the right for how another parent wants to bring their child. But I think we need to go ahead with this because the law passed last year, and it's way late in coming, and I think we can discuss it more if you want to discuss it more. But I think to have a policy that follows the law exactly, I don't know how we could get any better than that.
I, too, like this. I think it is an index, if you will, of where to go and where to find what you need in statute. And so for that reason, I will be supporting it. If I hear no other statements or questions or comments, let's vote. Motion carries unanimously. And that is it. That is the last one. Thank you, thank you, thank you for everyone for participation. The next board meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, May the 3rd at 6 p.m. here in this chambers. The next monthly work session is scheduled for Tuesday, May the 10th at 9 a.m. here in this chamber. As a reminder, the May 17th board meeting will be held in the Northport City Hall chambers at 3 p.m. due to the Northport High School graduation that evening. Does anyone have comments before we adjourn? We'll adjourn and then we'll finish up with the other comments that are not relative to the agenda?
I'm pushed by
Shirley
button.
Brown.
I would like to perhaps follow up on what teacher, I believe her name was Deb Bryan, talked about the investigations of employees, and what those are. I mean, are they another employee or a student? Perhaps look at that, and maybe work with our, employees to find out what's happening there, because I want to do what we can to support our employees. And if they're getting allegations charged against them that are foundless, I think we need to look at that. And the other thing that one of the speakers talked about, having their children come to school on high holy days. I know that's something that Carol Todd used to beat into every time, that we shouldn't just have, and we didn't have Good Friday off. It was a teacher planning day. I mean, I think we need to look at that, because when we're asking students to come on those high holy days, I think we should. It is discriminatory to have some Christian holidays off and not others.
But we do allow them an excused absence, correct?
Well, I'd like to discuss it more at the board at the workshop if we could, or after the calendar people look at it. Because it's going to come, I'm going to tell you right now, when we go to approve the next calendars, if I'm here,
You're not.
I'll bring it up. Or if not, I'll come as a speaker and bring it up.
Oh, okay. Tom Edwards.
So a couple of things. I agree with the high holiday comments, and also the teacher investigation. If that's a particular issue, I listened intently to both of those for us to follow up on. The procedure for how we go about requesting legal services from our legal vendor is something that I had as noted that I wanted to bring up in member comments, and I know that it will be put on a workshop agenda for us to talk about. The other thing that I'm a little uncomfortable with, and I'd like to talk about at a workshop, I know the superintendent has the authority right now to create procedure, and that we're the policymakers, but I'd like to create, I guess, a policy that says we get a chance to look at those procedures or approve those procedures before they go into before they're enacted. I don't know how we want to talk about that, but I would feel more comfortable on certain social, emotional, mental health, physical kinds of things to make sure that we're all on that same page. And frankly, superintendents and school board members come and go, and I think that that's a good place to be. In that place also, I think it's urgent that we get impact fees on a workshop agenda. Because builders are suffering, home builders, commercial builders are suffering the same escalation costs in building that we're going to be experiencing. And the sooner we fill those coffers and get those dollars and cents back to the bottom line, the better. Lastly, from my point of view, I find it problematic that we as a board can be and are uncivil to one another. And from my point of view, I think it's quite apparent that we disagree on policies. I think we know who those people are. It can be said that kind of thing is dividing our community. And all I'm saying, and I've said this before, that we passed a referendum at 85%. And I think that we have an amazing school district, and I'm going to do my best not to even refer to fellow school board members and to discuss anything about them or whatever they've said. I think it's clear that we differ in policy, and when we do, we don't need to snipe at each other. So I'm going to do a better job of that.
Shirley Brown.
One more thing that seems to keep coming up, we hear it from people who are speaking, and we're hearing it from the board too. And whether or not we broke the law, there wasn't a law in effect until after we had repealed our mask mandate. the law that we were looking at was the Parents' Bill of Rights, and I contended at the time that Section 4 allows you to override the Parents' Bill of Rights if there's a compelling interest. And I thought the 2,000 students that week that had contracted COVID was a compelling reason. And the judge in the case that the parents brought against I believe it was the governor's mandate that he said, and also that the judge also said that emergency order was not in order either, because the emergency had ended on June 30th and this order was given in July. So therefore, the governor didn't have standing to tell the school boards what to do in an emergency situation. So the judge came out and agreed with what I proposed, and I think with some of the other board members agreed, yes, the school board had the responsibility to do what's needed. We can have difference of opinion in that, but I believe there was a judge that came down on the exact things I had, and I do believe that the governor felt that way too, and that's why they called a special session, and they wrote a law that if we passed a mask mandate, we would be breaking the law. But at the time, I don't believe there was a legal ban on mask mandates in place.
Thank you.
I said when we had the discussion. Of course, there was a lot of things said in that August.
Dr. Asplin.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say once again, thank you to all of our teachers, all of our principals, our assistant principals, the custodial staff, the food service staff, transportation, our district people. Everybody's doing such a great job, our police officers. I just want you to know that we all know that you do a fantastic job with our students. You're working so very hard. You've done a great job this year, and we know that you are helping our students to be successful, and you have that positive impact on your students. And so I also want to thank our parents. Thank you to the parents for working with us, helping us at our schools, working with our teachers, working with our students. We do appreciate you and really all of our stakeholders and community and our foundations, everybody. It's all one big village, as we say, working as one for the success of all. We all are working together, and I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for all of your hard work every single day to help our students. And to the district staff, thank you for staying tonight. Appreciate it.
Hearing no other comments, we're adjourned. And now, if anyone wants to leave before we hear the last few hearing of citizens' comments that are generic, what? We'll have about 3 to 5 minutes for everyone to leave if they'd like.
limiting free speech is an important key to controlling the narrative. Facts, though, remain, as John Adams said over 200 years ago, rather stubborn things. One important fact is that according to the Florida Department of Education school accountability scores for 2021, Sarasota County is no longer the third best overall district in Florida, but has fallen dramatically lower to sixth. It is also a fact that the latest DOE scores, which this board chose to not publish, indicate that Sarasota is perilously close to falling from A-rated to a B rating. We have Booker Elementary rated as an equivalent score to a D now, looking for a new principal. Wilkinson scored an F points total in the DOE report, but the principal is still in place. Wilkinson has more kids below grade level achievement than at or above it, which is a wicked injustice to those 250 plus kids. The question isn't why aren't these, it is rather why aren't these disturbing facts on the agenda? And of course the answer is it doesn't serve the woke narrative of the current board majority. While free speech should always be free, sometimes it's advisable to not say certain things lest one is ridiculed. Do you know who I am, as immortalized by me, is never a good idea. Stating that this district is third in the state when it's not is another. Finally, it might also be better to not repeat the rather bizarre hot mic assertion by a board member at a recent meeting that she has big balls. Thank you.
Sandy Armstrong.
Good evening. I would like to request that this be included in the public record. Regarding the attorney's fees, per Dr. Asplin, the attorney had since February to determine the cost versus the fees. Based on the definition for costs and fees given by the attorney, fees sound like they would be those things that are billable by the hour. Costs would be those things that there should be a receipt for. It's unclear as to why it is taking so long to get an accurate accounting from the attorney. It also seems odd that it would not be easy to distinguish between costs and fees. Will the attorney also provide the receipts for all the line items identified as costs? I'd like to know how much was charged for Dan DeLeo to reply to public records requests. As Jane mentioned, it would be interesting to know who calls for what. I'm curious to see the breakout from the many attorney discussions regarding the LGBTQ Safe Schools guidelines that instruct school personnel how to have secret conversations with children about their sexual preferences without their parents' knowledge, as mentioned on the Equality Florida Altogether Now conference Zoom conducted by Jane Goodwin, Penny Renninger, and Deb Gaglione in March of 2021. An unforeseen emergency expenditure is not an ongoing expense incurred over a period of weeks or months. Your unsuccessful attempts to violate the inherent rights of parents, the Department of Education, the governor, were not extraordinary circumstances. They were circumstances resulting from your poor choices and reckless spending. Those that voted to mandate masks are responsible for these excessive fees. On that note, why weren't the costs associated with COVID considered at one of the multiple emergency meetings that you called? Sufficient opportunity existed to address the emergency expenditure as would be required when exceeding an approved budget. Failure to consider the financial consequences related to the board's actions reflects a failure in leadership, not an emergency. I'd like to know how much, I've already covered that. Thank you so much.
Lisa Schur.
John Wilson. I want to let you guys know, I came here about 1.5 years ago, and it was really political. It was over the brain pop stuff in my daughter's class, because she was only in 2nd grade then. But over that 1.5 years, it became personal. As soon as you put a mask on my daughter, it became personal. And then as I looked down through there and I saw all of the Title I schools are not getting the tools and they can't read, it became more personal. So that's where I'm at right now. And then I see at the workshop, one of you people said, "Oh my God, the Lakeview did amazing with this new reading stuff." Well, let's take a look at Lakeview. Lakeview's been scoring over 70% with the FSA scores. You actually think that a school that scores 40% is going to have the growth that Lakeview's going to have? It's not. But I did find out why we're keeping the reading recovery, because I saw this thing about it's ran by Gulf Coast Community Foundation and Barancic. And then the lady, Robertson Consulting Group, wants a study, and it's going to finish in September 2022. And it directly says that it's tied to the FSA scores. You know, that's perfect. And then the other thing is, and then I talk with successful businessmen. They wouldn't invest $11 million over 7 years for junk. You know how much inequity I found in this district so far? PTO. Have not. Playgrounds. Playgrounds are open on the weekend for some of the schools. Most of the schools are not. Perfect. I have found more inequity than your ridiculous committee that has a BLM member sitting on it. And that frosts me. There's committee members that grew up in the neighborhood around Booker. But guess what? Those scores have been sitting there the whole time.
Thank you.
Paulina Testerman.
I'm Sandy Armstrong, Sarasota. I have heard in some past public comments here accuse schools of promoting, quote, gay indoctrination simply because students who are gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, or questioning are needing their school environment to feel safe and secure about who they are, that they belong, or that their parents who are lesbian or gay or transsexual to feel safe and supported raising healthy, well-educated children, versus being castigated by right-wing homophobes asking the school board and the schools to discriminate against them. I have heard people speaking saying, quote, only one Black Lives Matter person in our schools is one too many, end quote. Witnessed our right-wing legislators ban school materials that simply state true and accurate history about enslaved people, about redefining Black people, about redlining Black people out of real estate purchases, about calling Black people less than full humans, limiting voting rights and ability to access polling places, and most recently, our Florida Department of Education has rejected 54 math books they claim, yet do not share the titles of those books, but they claim they refer to critical race theory because of some conjured idea that it might make white students uncomfortable. Frankly, these claims should make all of us uncomfortable, frightened to our very bones to have our schools and our democracy desecrated this way. Please, Sarasota School Board and Superintendent, do whatever you can to help all of our school children and their families feel safe, cared for, and able to learn true history and critical thinking skills to counteract this travesty. Thank you for all you do.
Luke Angstadt.
Lisa Scher. I came here tonight to talk about the for-profit charter schools, but I should have figured out by looking at social media that you were queuing up the attorney's fees issue. Well, you got a problem here. I've been on the side of managing 400 attorney law firm, and I've been on the side of managing several $1 million worth of legal fees. The problem that you have is a problem of your own making. You're billed on a monthly basis for these legal fees. You have the responsibility as a board for monitoring these legal fees. You think you've got legal fee problems now? This ridiculous legislation that's come out of Tallahassee is so poorly written that I could find 15 lawsuits on every one of them. So I think we need to do something about our problem. And what we need to do is to work together. You need to put together a committee of retired lawyers, current lawyers, anybody that you can get to help you build a budget for next year for legal fees. Because I can guarantee you, you think $800,000 is a lot? Drop in the bucket. Absolute drop in the bucket. The school board's going to get sued. Your teachers are going to get sued. I actually had signed up to be a substitute teacher. There is no way in God's green earth that I'm going to be a substitute teacher when I run a risk of getting sued because I wear a rainbow bracelet. So let's talk about what we can do together as a school district. You have got to get this under control. It's your responsibility. You need people to advise you how to build the budget. You've got to monitor the budget on a monthly basis. What you've been doing is clearly not working. The politicking has got to stop. Thank you.
Carol Lerner.
Good evening. My name is Paulina Testerman. I am the co-founder of Support Our Schools, and I have 2 children in Sarasota County Traditional Public Schools. 5 years ago, my son was graduating from elementary school, and we were faced with the daunting task of deciding where to send him to middle school. Back in my day, nobody chose which school their child attended. They simply sent their child to their districted school. My son wanted to attend a charter school that all of his friends were planning to attend. I knew nothing about charter schools, and I presumed they were just like traditional public schools. We toured the school, and in spite of the fact that it practically taught the same amount of students, the school was tiny. Compared to my son's districted middle school, it had much smaller classrooms, barely a yard to play in, no grass, it had a turf field, and narrow, dark hallways. At the end of my tour, my son, an avid reader, raised his hand and asked the tour guide, "When will we get to see the library?" The tour guide replied, "Actually, buddy, we don't have a library here at the school. Instead, we partner with Selby Library." That was a deal breaker for my son. Reading was more important than being with his friends. But I thought long and hard about that sentence. Don't all Sarasota County residents partner with our public libraries? I recognize that charter schools fulfill a perceived need in our community and that there are countless parents who are pleased with the education that their children are receiving. I'm not here to disparage charter schools. What I am here to do is to challenge our Sarasota County residents and parents to educate themselves on the differences between charter schools and traditional public schools, and to make sure that they have a true picture of why some charter schools seem to do well while other traditional public schools are struggling. An A-rated charter school is not necessarily a better school than a B-rated traditional public school. There are countless services that charter schools do not provide to students. Do your homework. Lastly, I encourage the Sarasota County School Board members to take a firm stand against any for-profit charter schools. Our children are not a commodity. They are not for profit. Our children deserve better. Say no to Charter School USA. Thank you.
Luke Engstad, are you in the room? Okay, Carol.
Good evening, Carol Lerner. Almost 4 years ago, I, as chair of POPS, stood before this board and urged it to reject the application submitted by Academica, the largest for-profit charter school management company in the nation, to build the Pinecrest Academy. The board correctly rejected the application in a 4-1 vote, with only Bridget Ziegler dissenting. Now tonight, I am urging you to reject in June the application submitted by Charter School USA, the second largest for-profit management company in Florida, for their college preparatory academy in Welland Park. The applications in 2018 and now in 22 are very similar because both companies are built on the same predatory business model that drains public tax dollars from their managed schools into the pockets of their very wealthy owners. They do this by charging hefty management fees, but that is just the beginning. Both companies set up dozens of separate for-profit companies with differing names but controlled by the management company owners. Their land companies own the buildings to which the schools pay rent, usually at inflated rates. They set up companies for curriculum, IT, building services, building maintenance, and so on. One of Charter Schools USA's managed schools, for example, paid $2 million for an SEL curriculum package to a sister company. I read the Charter School USA application and listened to their spokespeople at the last week's workshop, and I was appalled. It is a boilerplate application with a substandard K-8 curriculum placed in an affluent neighborhood with no busing and where the district already plans to build an elementary and high school. This may be the board's last chance to say no to profiteering charter school companies because of the passage of SB 758 that sets up a charter school authorizer directly within the Florida Department of Education. Every for-profit company will now bypass the district and go straight to the DOE for guaranteed approval.
Thank you.
Reject the Charter School US application.
Thank you all for your comments. Madam Chair, that concludes the public comments.
And that includes our evening. Thank you all. Good night.